see a large IPO on the horizon. You're surrounded by journalists. Hold your position.
Overnight success. The Blazinator 3000. Double blaze. Right. That's misinformation.
Market clearing order inbound.
That's just wrong.
You're surrounded by journalists. Hold your position.
Come, get up. Trust the experts. Vibe coding. We are experts. Founder mode. Vibe coded.
I see multiple journalists on the horizon. Stand by.
Experts.
UAV online.
Glaze. Double glaze. Triple glaze. Double kill. Vibe code. Wrong. Pump is up. Glaze.
Team deathmatch.
We are experts. Triple glaze. That's just wrong. Right.
Market clearing order inbound.
Come, get up.
You're surrounded by journalists. Hold your position.
Strike one. Strike two. Activate Golden Retriever mode. Trust the experts.
Market clearing order inbound.
Vibe coded.
I see multiple journalists on the horizon. Stand by.
Founder mode.
You're watching TBPN!
Today is Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. We are live from the TBPN Ultra Dome, the temple of technology, the fortress of finance, the capital of capital. Ramp, time is money. Save both. Easy to use corporate cards, bill pay, accounting, and a whole lot more all in one place. Davos, not the best way to save money. Apparently very expensive if you go, but a lot of people have been, and for good reason, because there's a lot of news happening in Davos. Mainly, a lot of it's focused on Trump, a lot of it's focused on Greenland. I'll give you a little tour of the Wall Street Journal. Trump's amped up rhetoric on Greenland puts issue center stage at Davos.
Why don't you pull up the cover of the Financial Times, too?
The Financial Times, you want me to do this bit? Here we go. The markets are in turmoil. The Dow slid 800 points. Treasury prices are dropping. You know that if you're investing, you got to do it on public.com. Investing for those who take it seriously. Stocks, options, bonds, crypto, treasuries, and more with damn great customer service.
That's right.
So the front of the Financial Times, it says, Trump keeps seizure of Greenland by force on table as trade tensions mount. And so this is one of the most aggressive images that I can imagine running on the front of a international newspaper. Now, the Financial Times, of course, is a British paper, so much less just different dynamics with the current American administration. Trump, I think, has a lawsuit going with the Wall Street Journal. There's a whole bunch of things that are going on with the American media. But over in the Financial Times, they print some wild stuff. And they printed this image of a Danish soldier pointing a gun at the camera. So Danish soldiers exercising on Greenland.
Anybody that's been around guns knows that
you don't want to be looking down the barrel
a gun at anyone.
Crazy.
Even a photographer to get a cool picture is typically just completely off limits.
Yeah. And so
but they went there.
What this says to me is that the Danes said, hey, the head of the army has been flown out to the autonomous territory. Danish troops are on the ground in Greenland, and we're doing a photo shoot. We're getting a soldier with a sniper rifle or an assault rifle. We're going to point that at a camera person. We're going to take that photo, and then we're going to send that to the editor of the Financial Times.
And we're going to run it on the front page.
We're going to run it on the front page. Of course, the Danes don't have the authority to just put anything on the front page, but they pitched it, and clearly they sent the photo, and the Financial Times editor enjoyed it, so he put it on the front page. But it kind of gives you a little bit of a taste of what's going on. The Wall Street Journal is also covering it. Trump threats on Greenland, mobilize allies. That is taking center stage at Davos. But this is a technology show. This is a business show, and we're focused on what Dario Amodei said at Davos. We will pull
it up.
First, let me tell you about Railway. Railway simplifies software deployment, web apps, servers, and databases. They run in one place with scaling, monitoring, and security built in. So let's pull up the clip of Dario Amodei on stage. He's the co-founder and CEO of Anthropic. He calls out Trump's policy around NVIDIA and China. Let's play the clip.
Go out into the world, right? When we're competing against other companies for enterprise contracts, we see, just honestly and candidly, we see Google and we see OpenAI. Every once in a while, we see a couple other U.S. players. I have almost never lost a deal, lost a contract to a Chinese model.
But now you have the Trump administration, and I think you've already protested about this, giving high-speed chips, NVIDIA chips to the Chinese.
That's right. The thing that is holding them back, and they've said it themselves, the CEOs of these companies say it's the embargo on chips that's holding us back. They explicitly say this. And now, indeed, there are some policies, and I hope they change their mind, to explicitly send not quite our latest generation of chips, although it was reported that even that was being considered, but the generation of chips that's just one back, that's still extremely powerful. And we are many years ahead of China in terms of our ability to make chips. So I think it would be a big mistake to ship these chips. The analogy I thought of, if you think about the incredible national security implications of building models that are essentially cognition, that are essentially intelligence, right? I've called where we're going with this a country of geniuses in a data center, right? So imagine 100 million people smarter than any Nobel Prize winner, and it's going to be under the control of one country or another. So I think this is crazy. I think it's it's a bit like I don't know, like selling nuclear weapons to North Korea and bragging, oh yeah, Boeing made the case.
So your friend David Sachs is basically arming the Chinese.
I wouldn't refer to any particular. I would just say
trying
that
to put words in his mouth.
I think
is akin to
yeah, it's not
giving nuclear weapons.
well.
Okay, I want Jordy's reaction. I want Tyler's reaction. But first, I want to tell you about Labelbox. Reinforcement learning environments, voice, robotics, evals, and expert human data. Labelbox is the data labeling factory behind the world's leading labs. Tyler, what's your reaction to that? How do you interpret that? How big of an issue is the China question right now? What are you reading into Daria's rhetoric there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like fairly reasonable if you basically think that AI is going to be AGI. It's going to be this massive. We're going to get 10% GDP growth. Because at some point it's like, if it's just like economy versus economy, like we got to be better.
Yeah, that's something
even
that's
if you're
sort
not,
of lost.
Like, worried about doom.
Yeah,
because there's also the point
there's
where it's
competition.
Like, yeah, like if you're worried about safety, also. So there's like two ways, right? If you think AGI just is going to be massive, economically speaking, and then also on the safety issue, right? Because if you think like maybe China is going to be less concerned about safety, they're not going to be as worried about alignment. That's like obviously a massive danger. You don't want to give the technology to people who don't, worry about the safety aspect.
The funny thing about in America, we're like, AI could lead to 10% GDP growth, and China's like, oh, you mean what we did in 2007? When we were growing at 14% GDP growth? Or should we go back to 1970 when we grew at 19%? Or should we go back to 2004 when we were 10.1? Or 1992 when we were growing at 14.3%? Or even in 2021, they had an 8.6 GDP growth. They know 10% GDP growth over there.
They felt it.
They'll do it with or without AI chips. But obviously, AI chips are big.
One dynamic that's interesting is China has obviously a massive advantage in robotics.
Yes.
And right now we have an advantage in the models.
Yes.
And if that kind of continues,
but also
you have this
the
dynamic
GPUs, like the data centers, like we are GPU rich.
So I'm saying, I guess, like robotic stack, AI stack.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see how, because obviously if you have an advantage in one area, that might help you gain an advantage in another area, right? But we'll see which one ends up being more impactful.
Let me tell you about Cisco. It's critical infrastructure for the AI era. We love Cisco. We're happy to be partnered with them. And let me also take you through the linear lineup today because we have some great guests on the show. We have Martin Shkreli joining at noon, Bradley Tusk at 12:30.
And if you're not familiar with Martin Shkreli, he's an American businessman.
He's a businessman.
And investor.
Lucas Zinger's coming in. We have a surprise for everyone. We're going to be taking a look at his car. We're very excited about that. And then we have the Lambda Lightning Round. Linear, of course, is the system for modern software development. 70% of enterprise workspaces on Linear are using agents now. We're very excited to share that fact with you. Let's click it over to Palantir CEO Alex Karp, who shared some commercial lessons of AI on the battlefield. There's a clip from him from Davos, and there's a little Easter egg in this video for the true TBPN ball knowers, for the TBPN fans.
I know what you're about to say.
So watch this clip, and you can tell me if you identify
a former guest.
Enterprises in general, not all enterprises, tend to want to, over time, become like every other enterprise. So if you take five, A enterprise and B enterprise and C enterprise, they're in the same market. Their tech infrastructure is trying to make them into the same enterprise. They have the same org chart.
Sure.
They have presumably roughly the same, they don't have the same data infrastructure. And what you learn on the battlefield is that, and in life is that's not particularly valuable. What is very valuable is an enterprise can do something no enterprise in the world can do. And so that is the goal of every single military intelligence service. In fact, all these intelligence services and militaries have their own specialization. And so when we went to commerce, like what we're saying is, how can we make your insurance company, the way you underwrite, how can we make that to your tribal knowledge about underwriting? How can we transform this to knowledge everyone has?
Okay, go back 1 second. Go back 1 second. Okay.
Transform this to
pause.
Knowledge.
Okay, it's very hard to see. But behind the guy to the right,
behind Alex Karp.
Behind Alex Karp, there's another man, and behind that man, next to the WEF logo, is a man who has been on the show.
Philip Johnston, the co-founder
Wait,
and CEO
I thought
of
you were
StarCloud.
talking. I thought you were talking about Satya Nadella.
Wait, what?
I thought that was
I think that's
Dennis.
Satya in the back.
Wait, oh, you think it's Satya? No, I'm talking about the guy right there that you can see. That's Philip from StarCloud. I saw him going to Davos, and I was like, this
Okay,
guy's
this
on a
whole
generational run.
This whole
Wait, is it
time-
not? Maybe it's not. I think it is. I'm really sorry, Philip, if I got this wrong, but that looks a lot
I
like
might be
you.
getting it wrong too.
That looks a lot like you.
We might just be seeing things.
We might be seeing things, we might be hallucinating, but the one thing we're not hallucinating is Lambda. Lambda is the super intelligence cloud, building AI supercomputers for training and inference that scale from one GPU to hundreds of thousands. Anyway, enough with the Easter eggs.
This whole time I thought I really was thinking the guy in the back.
Really?
Satya's. He's
No.
Kind of hard to clock.
I don't think that's Satya. I think that's Philip Johnson from StarCloud. I did see him go to Davos, so it's not crazy, but he'll probably correct me if that's not him. Anyway, I would love an explainer from Ragav around the recession indicator, Young Boy Never Broke Again. I'm familiar with NBA Young Boy, but I'm not familiar with the recession indicator, so I would love to get some more information from you folks on this. Let's dive in and dig into what Dr. Karp actually said on the stage at Davos. But first, let me tell you about Finn, the #1 AI agent for customer service. If you want AI to handle your customer support, go to fin.ai. So it's an interesting pitch. It's particularly interesting talking about just more and more custom systems and this idea of, software gets built. A whole bunch of companies are doing things a manual way. One company extracts that and sort of factors out that business process, turns it into enterprise SaaS, is sold to all the different companies. Now, what Karp is really saying, it sounds like, is that every company will have some sort of custom implementation that will be way more flexible and way more tuned to their specific businesses. And this is sort of the Palantir pitch. They'll come in and build something that's semi-custom, on top of their systems that they've already built. And it's an interesting blurring of the lines from you want something that checks all your boxes, but in the future, will you really want, if you're a large enterprise, will you really want to be vibe coding your own solutions to everything? Maybe, but
Going to need
you probably want
system of
some
record.
sort of foundational elements, and that's like the pitch for the ontology stack, understanding how the data links together. And then as you build on top of that, you have a more solid foundation. Seems like a good pitch. Would be interesting to see how this is where the rubber meets the road and at what level. The big question with Palantir right now is, that they work with the largest companies and organizations in the world, obviously the military among them. But will they go down the stack and have more, they have AIP, they're bringing more startups onto the platform. Will there be a world where more sort of mid-market enterprises, sub-$10 billion companies are thriving with a Palantir-backed system? Certainly would be good for the business to just have more customers on board, but will be a dynamic that grows. Anyway, 11 Labs. Build intelligent, real-time conversational agents, reimagine human technology interaction with 11 Labs. And I got to give 11 Labs a shout-out because yesterday, when we spent 45 minutes talking about X articles, I know everyone loved that because I did summarize it in a newsletter piece that you could have read in 2 minutes. But it was fun talking for 45 minutes. One of the things that I brought up was that maybe 11 Labs should do an article reader that would allow you, since there's articles all over X now, to just click a button and have 11 Labs read it to you. Well, they built it, and it's already live, so very, very exciting. 11 Reader is the account here. It says articles everywhere. You can save them with the Chrome extension, listen on the web, or sync to your phone in under 10 seconds. For the bookmarkers out there, for the people that are finding those articles and saying, I'm going to book those, probably a pretty reasonable way to actually get through your stack of articles that you've been meaning to read, but you were busy and you just saw it, and you saw that it got a lot of likes and a lot of engagement, and you want to dig in, but you don't have the time, so you're going to head over and do that. Anyway, Vibe.co, where D2C brands, B2B startups, and AI companies advertise on streaming TV, pick channels, target audiences, and measure sales, just like on Meta.
Head over to Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng over at Davos.
Okay, what did he say?
Quick
China
10-second
never
clip.
seeks a trade surplus. On top of being the world's factory, China hopes to become the world's market. Let's watch the Chinese Vice Premier.
For economy and trade, we never seek trade surplus. On top of being the world's factory, we hope to be the world's market too. Global economy and
It was an accident. we didn't mean to do this. It was an accident. It was not our intention to develop a massive trade surplus with the world.
I feel like you, I mean, not to go back to 11 Labs, but you have a lot of flexibility with the translator that you choose at one of these events. How are you not going with an Arnold Schwarzenegger? You know?
Totally.
Yeah, like you could have anyone be your translator, so why not throw in a Morgan Freeman or, you know?
Just any type of really like
a Joe Rogan.
Yeah, Joe Rogan.
He already is announcing the UFC. Get him on the microphone, translate it for him, and then he reads it out to the audience, and it sounds like your Joe Rogan voice is out there.
I like it.
This.
I like it.
Anyway, I mean, it's just, I think this is positive. You know, we were just talking to Matt Grimm yesterday about you know, the West versus China and global competition, and like I think all of that stuff is important. I think what Dario is saying is important, but I still come back to this idea that like no one wants war, no one wants, you know, everyone wants positive sum relationships, and so it is good to see, you know, global leaders coming together, better than everyone just being holed up and posting at each other on Redbook and Truth Social. I like an economic forum. I think Davos is back. That's the real lesson from this year. I think the fact that Trump was going was a big pull. There was a lot of coverage, a lot of interesting discussion around it, and Davos really pulled together a fantastic group this year, and is definitely breaking through in the tech community, in the business community, in the political community, in a way that I don't remember it being as important in last year. And so a little bit of a comeback. You love to see it. Console builds AI agents that automate 70% of IT, HR, and finance support, giving employees instant resolution for access requests and password resets.
Lisan Al-Gaib is quoting Dario at Davos, who also said, "We don't need to maximize engagement for 1 billion users." Of course,
taking shots.
Okay,
at the so
folks over at OpenAI.
I threw this question to both of you earlier today. What is the probability?
It's funny that this is a shot too, because it's like he is acknowledging that they've developed.
Is he anti-ads? Yeah, Anthropic is against slopping ads.
He said he's anti-ads. Yeah.
Wow, boo! This is hard. I was falling in love with Dario. I love so much about his rhetoric. Obviously, the models are fantastic, but he has to come and stab me in the back like that with a shot on my favorite piece of the global economy, the advertising industry. Very, very brutal. But hopefully we
What
can
other
bring
notes
him
did
around.
you have from the conversation?
Yeah. So there's a bunch I took. So these ones were from, he did a Wall Street Journal Q&A this morning.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just read some quotes.
Yeah.
He thinks we're going to have very high GDP and very high unemployment and inequality.
So when we've kind of ballparked this at like 10% GDP growth for America, that would be unprecedented, massive. We're typically at like 2 to 3%. 10% would be a significant acceleration.
Yeah, and then for the unemployment was like 10 to 20%.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And we can debate this more, and I'm sure we will. We'll eventually formulate an entire structural presentation around this at some point. But continue.
And then he said there's going to have to be some role for like for the government to intervene on some macro level to help with this displacement of labor.
Yep.
He says ideology will not survive this technology.
Ideology will not survive.
Yeah, it's kind of vague. A bit of a vague post.
Except his ideology. He's like, actually, mine is like kind of got a straight shot here.
Yeah, what could be more ideological than being against advertising?
He said
he's a zealot. He's an anti-advertising zealot.
He said AI is uniquely well suited to autocracy.
Autocracy. Okay.
Yeah, so
This is a teal take as well.
Yeah, this was in the context of like why he's kind of anti-giving chips to China.
Okay. Yeah. AI is communist. Crypto is libertarian. That take. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he kind of he said like Google and OpenAI are like firmly in consumer. It's kind of this existential like battle between them. And Anthropic is firmly in enterprise. He's very happy with that decision. He doesn't have to monetize the 1 billion users or whatever, or monetize free users.
Yeah.
He can just sell like things.
He's
to
like,
business that have real
I'm
value.
so happy I don't have to worry about monetizing 1 billion users.
He said on the question of like, are they going to do generative stuff?
Yeah.
He said, They probably won't ever do it. I think Schulte said this too.
Yeah,
but if
there
they
are
need to,
enough models out there that Claude Code can go and sign you up for the Nano Banana API.
Yeah, like
right?
maybe there's a use case for images and like presentations or something, but then they can just kind of vend in some API. They can contract it.
So
out.
my big question is, I think we all agree that ads in the Claude iOS app are a very low priority, something we will likely not see this year. Oh, that's fine. Thank you. Something we likely won't see this year, just because they have such a good business going on the enterprise side, and the user base for the Claude iOS app is not necessarily big enough to support a really healthy ad business, and they're sort of ideologically against it. But on the slop question, you can use Claude Code to generate slop. Like you can
article slop.
Well, article slop, but also imagery. You can wire it up to the Sora API, to the Nano Banana API, and you can go create a whole bunch of generative video. And people, but that is the Schulte promise of like it should be able to go and use other models, right? The question for me is, when will that functionality come to the Claude iOS app? Because Claude can write
that
some
feels very
code.
natural to like cowork. So
Yes,
I think
exactly.
when that comes to iOS,
Exactly, yeah. But so what will the cowork iOS product look like? How much flexibility will it have? Because it won't have all the same APIs to go into your folders. Like the whole cleaning up your desktop like meme on your MacBook Pro with Claude Code. That's something that would just be sort of inaccessible to the iOS ecosystem because the APIs aren't there. So even if they tried to build it, Apple will just say, no, you're not rearranging icons on the desktop, because that could be used maliciously, and this is a privacy issue, and this is a security issue, and so we're not giving you the hooks to do that. The question is, like, how much can they do in the cloud and then vend back to you? Because if you have a virtual machine that's running Python and has Claude Code running, and you're interfacing with it from the Claude iOS app, you could do a bunch of crazy stuff, including generate images and go and sign up for a Nano Banana account.
What if we have an AI safety incident this year where somebody leaves like a Claude Code terminal kind of open and on, and just creates billions of social media accounts and just flooding the internet with
I thought you were going to say just like some kid, you know how like kids will download like Fortnite and then like spend too much on V-Bucks, or they'll like get their parents' credit cards and like run up a bill. It'd be funny if someone like downloaded Claude on the iOS app and like accidentally kicked off something that like provisioned a ton of AWS servers, and they just get a bill for like $400,000 and they go bankrupt. That'd be a sort of AI safety incident. That'd be funny. Anyway, Figma. Figma Make isn't your average vibe coding tool. It lives in Figma, so outputs look good, feel real, and stay connected to how teams build, create code-backed prototypes and apps fast. So what else did Lisan Al-Gaib say about Davos? Some companies are essentially led by people who have a scientific background. That's my background. That's Demis's background. We had some love for Demis in the chat. Shout out to Demis over at DeepMind. Some of them are led by a generation of entrepreneurs that did social media, taking shots. Dario is like, he's on one.
Yeah, I mean,
he was great at Dealbook.
Wildly entertaining.
Incredibly
to listen
entertaining.
to, because it's like bold statement, jab.
Yeah.
Bold statement, jab.
And then also people will hit him with the hard questions, and he'll kind of be like, he'll acknowledge, he'll very quickly tell the interviewer, I know where you're going with that, and I'm not going there, but in like a fun way that's not really adversarial. And he never flips it around and like takes shots at them. And is like, why are you asking me that question? I'm not here to answer that question. He's like, no, I know what you're trying to get me to do, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to take the bait. But he like knows that it's bait. It's very entertaining.
Interviewer trying to bait him into saying that David Sachs was arming the Chinese. It's crazy.
That's crazy. He says, there's a long tradition of scientists thinking about the effects of the technology that they built, of thinking of themselves as having responsibility for the technology they built, not ducking responsibility. They are motivated in the first place by creating something for the world. So they worry in the cases that something can go wrong. I think the motivation of entrepreneurs, particularly the generation of social media entrepreneurs, are very different. The way they interacted, you could say manipulated consumers, is very different. I think that leads to different attitudes. He's taken some shots, potentially at Sam Altman, although Sam Altman not really a social media entrepreneur, but I get that he's in that generation. Obviously, this is more directed.
Was he saying
Mark
Looped?
Mark Zuckerberg.
Was that a reference to Looped?
I mean, Looped was technically social media, but I think of Sam Altman much more of YC, enterprise software, startups, Stripe, like he's never really been in-house at a major social media company that I'm aware of. I don't know, but I take Dario's point, and he's just trying to reinforce this idea that he does think talking about responsibility for the technology that he's building is important. That's the Anthropic vibe and brand, and it's served them very well. Anyway, Plaid. Plaid powers the apps you use to spend, save, borrow, and invest, securely connecting bank accounts to move money, fight fraud, and improve lending, now with AI.
Let's talk about Waymo.
Let's do it. So today I wrote a quick piece. It was a reaction to a reaction because David Zipper went in Bloomberg and he wrote a piece, said, we still don't know if robo-taxis are safer than human drivers. Then Kelsey Piper went over to the argument and wrote a response to that saying, yes, we do know. And her interesting point was that what David Zipper is doing is he's lumping all of the different robo-taxis together. So Waymo and Cruise and Tesla and Comma and Zoox, and there's a whole bunch of other data that can go into this bucket, and they're not all created equal. Waymo's been doing it for decades at this point. They have insane CapEx, insane OpEx. There's, humans in the loop a lot of times, and it's just like the most advanced team. It seems like it's, the most advanced technology stack. There's a lot of advantages, and that's actually showing up in the data. And so her main dispute with Zipper is over what data she's including, he's including in making this claim that, hey, we don't know if robotaxis are actually safer than human drivers. And she gives this great analogy that I really, really enjoyed. So she says, imagine someone writes a piece and they say, we don't know if airplanes are safe. Some people say that crashes are extremely rare, and others say that crashes happen every week. And when you investigate this claim further, you learn what's going on is that commercial aviation crashes are extremely rare. This is true. While general aviation crashes, small personal planes, including ones that you can build in your own garage, are quite common. And so, yes, if you lump that together, you're going to get this muddy picture of aviation, but you shouldn't use that to sort of fearmonger about getting on a 747, because 747s just so rarely crash. But yeah, if you build your own Cessna and you're modding it and you're taking it through the canyons, you got to watch out.
Ask any recreational pilot if they've ever gotten into any hairy incidents.
Totally.
They'll tell you oh yeah, well this time I was flying and the wind came on super strong and I landed and I was basically 90 degrees.
And a lot of times that counts as a crash. Harrison Ford has crash landed on a golf course, and I believe no one was injured. I think this happened multiple times actually.
By Harrison Ford?
Harrison Ford, yeah, he flies his own planes, but he flies old planes and stuff. He's a true enthusiast. He's like a
how many
plane
on
guy.
simpleflying.com? How many plane crashes has Harrison Ford had? In the last 25 years, the actor has been involved in several incidents involving emergency landings, rescues, and runway incursions.
Yeah, exactly. It happens. It sounds crazy. It is crazy. I would never want to be in any sort of plane crash, but there's just way more planes flying around when you include those Cessnas, and it's not really fair to put that on United Airlines or American Airlines.
13th of February 2017, Santa Ana, California, single-engine Aviat Husky flown by Harrison Ford was cleared to land on runway 20L. Ford's aircraft reportedly landed on a parallel taxiway, overflying American Airlines 737 that was holding short of runway 20L. 5th of March 2015, Santa Monica. Ford was a pilot and sole occupant of Ryan ST-3KR Recruit, a two-seat open cockpit aircraft that was used.
Open cockpit. Think about that. You're flying and the wind's in your hair. That's not a normal experience. That's not coach
the aircraft
on American
was
Airlines.
Used extensively as a training aircraft by the U.S. military in World War II. According to a preliminary report, Ford reported a loss of engine power shortly after taking off and was attempting to return to runway 3. So he ended up crashing into a field. Looks like
exactly.
Ford chose to land on a nearby golf course, clipping the top of a tree before landing.
If you just took Harrison Ford, he's probably more dangerous than American Airlines.
18th of June 2000. While landing in Lincoln, Nebraska, Ford's plane departed the runway due to a gust of wind. The aircraft sustained minor damage.
no.
23rd of October.
Wait, there's a fourth one? I
Ford
thought I
was
was
on a training
exaggerating.
flight in a Bell 206 helicopter when he and the instructor made an emergency landing in a dry riverbed near Santa Clarita, California.
So crazy.
Although the helicopter rolled over on its left side, neither Ford or the instructor were injured.
Yeah.
That's all that I can find.
Okay,
for now.
I have another plane story.
I mean, imagine
wanna
four major incidents like make it into the record. He's got to have at least like 10 more. That he's just like sketchy situation.
No one wrote a piece about it. No one saw it. Let's not talk about that.
Let's agree that,
Hey, calls his PR person. Hey, let's clean this up. How about you take a picture of me outside Erewhon? Call the Paps. I'm willing to
give
get
me
coffee
an
with
Erewhon
somebody.
branded smoothie. We need a new story.
We need a different story. I want to be on the front of the New York Post. I'll take the bad picture on the beach of me falling off or something. Anyway, Cognition, they're the makers of Devon, the AI software engineer. Crush your backlog with your personal AI engineering team. So I actually have a friend who's been on the show. I'm not going to dox him, but we have two friends, both of them fly. One of them is extremely serious, has IFR rating. So there's VFR, which is visual flight rules. That's like you take the plane up, it has to be clear because if you get into clouds, you're not trained for that. You can't fly at night.
Yeah.
Exactly. IFR is you're flying on the instruments, instrument flight rules, and so. We have one friend who's like super by the book, super safe, and then we have another buddy who's a little bit wilder, VFR, and he will rent like the cheaper planes. And one time, like the dial lights went out, and he was landing at night. Shouldn't be flying at night at all. Just like botched the schedule and didn't check sunset. And he has to use his phone flashlight while he's landing to look at the dials as he's coming in on this rickety like old plane that he's flying. People get crazy out there. They get confident. It is very dangerous. But just like if you're getting into personal aviation, flying your own planes, the jump in safety from VFR to IFR is significant. Like the IFR guys like crash way less. So highly recommend that if you are getting into flying your own planes. Anyway, Restream. One live stream, 30 plus destinations. If you want to multi-stream, go to restream.com. So Waymo is funny to write about because there's still a class of people that are writing the stories about like, hey, Waymo's actually safe. And I'm like, I completely buy it. I'm in. I roll the Waymos out everywhere. I've been in them. I feel safe in them. I've seen the data. I think they're safe. I'm just like, my eyes glaze over when someone's like, I'm going to blow your brain out. I'm going to blow your mind. Like, Waymos are safe.
Robot car.
I'm like, yeah,
safer.
I'm in. I'm totally in. But there's still this debate. And most people in tech are debating about just Waymo's unit economics and like, can they beat Tesla? What happens there? And so typically, I don't really wade into the safety thing because I think it's very safe. But this Piper piece, this piece by Kelsey Piper, did make me wonder about what happens if you further segment the human driver population. So we need to segment robo-taxis into Waymo and everyone else because Waymo's so good. But how does Waymo compare against the best human drivers? And I wasn't thinking like the Lewis Hamiltons of the world. I'm sure Lewis Hamilton could be superhuman at driving if he needed to. I wanted to think about it more as like, if I'm an insurance agent and I'm underwriting a class, a group of people, what would I be going for? And are they better than Waymo? And you can't look at fatal crashes per 100 million miles because there have been so few fatal crashes in Waymos, and there's just not enough data yet to look at that. So what you can look at is any injury crashes per million miles. And the Kelsey Piper piece is really good. It goes into a bunch of different methodologies for data collection, looking at incidents where Waymo's airbags release, because that's a very binary moment where there's a question about like, well, what's an injury? Like if somebody like got motion sick and then they had to go to the hospital, like does that count as an injury? Or like what if they were getting out of the car and then they fall? Like does that count? So there's all these things where it's like, does it count? So anyway, the best data that we have on Waymo is any injury crashes per million miles. For the average human, it's about 4 any injury crashes, so any injury that counts, 4 per million miles. Waymo is way better, 0.75, so about 5 times safer than humans broadly. But there's one very specific case where humans, I believe, are safer. Now, there's debate about the data. I just had Claude like crunch it all together and try and pull a bunch of stuff together, but I think this holds. So a married 60-year-old woman who's college educated and is driving a large luxury SUV in Massachusetts on a Tuesday morning is closer to 0.5 injury crashes per million miles.
Is the Tuesday morning part real?
Yes. So the most dangerous time to drive, and I'll flip it around. The most dangerous time to drive is midnight on a Saturday, because that's when people are at the bars, they leave, they're drinking, and so it's dark. It's the weekend. There's a lot more people on the road. They're driving much faster. They're getting places. They might be inebriated or under the influence of something. And so Tuesday morning is the safest time to drive. And so basically I looked at all the government IHTSA data. It's the Transportation Authority. I'm getting the acronym wrong. But you look at all the different segments, and then you add all those together, and you get kind of like the synthetic safest driver cohort. It's a little loose, but it does seem like if you looked at that cohort, they're still beating Waymo. Humans still got it. At least, like, kind of. It's pretty close. It's honestly neck and neck. So none of this should take away anything. None of this should take away
Feels
from
like a
aggressively
Nathan Fielder episode in the making of, like, studying the women in Massachusetts.
Yeah, like, what do they do?
Drivers on the planet. And he's just interviewing all of them to, like,
married 60-year-old college-educated women.
Comes to, like, the exact wrong conclusion.
Oh, yeah. We need to get everyone married and college-educated.
The conclusion is everyone needs to move to Massachusetts.
Yes.
And
well, it's the married 60-year-old women that need to be the taxi drivers everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
They need to be. It's like instead of Waymo,
he starts like a competitor to Waymo.
Ride hailing. That's just them.
Yeah, that's just them.
Yeah, but it only works in Massachusetts. So clearly, Waymos are very safe. Rolling them out nationally would be a huge safety upgrade for our society broadly. But it's worth noting that the Massachusetts married women still got it. But if you want to flip this around and find the hypothetically riskiest driver profile, it's very funny. It's an 18-year-old single male with a DUI driving a Dodge Challenger at midnight on a Saturday in rural Mississippi. That's as risky as you can get, and that's like,
makes sense.
An order of magnitude or 40 times as dangerous as the Massachusetts driver.
Yeah, but the interesting takeaway is that that you said earlier off the show was like Waymo's actually not superhuman level driver.
Yes,
because
it's not,
because in order to be that, you actually have to be better than the best human, right?
Exactly. So we need a word for not above average and in the top cohort of humans, but not better than any human ever. Because a lot of AI tools are getting there.
Well, I guess, okay, so I actually looked up
it's like top
the
decile.
definition. So superhuman means having powers, abilities, or qualities beyond normal human capacity.
Okay.
So it's potentially these women in Massachusetts,
they have
they're superhuman.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
As well as Waymo.
Yeah.
So maybe we do need to give Waymo a little more credit.
Well, if you're looking for superhuman payroll, head over to Gusto, the unified platform for payroll, benefits, and HR, built to evolve with modern small and medium-sized businesses.
The backbone of this show.
It is. Max Hodak had a post about Waymo. He said, interesting benefit of Waymo, it always matches instantly since it knows exactly what cars are available and that they will always accept. And it can also provide accurate wait times before requesting. And so lots of love for Waymo. Interesting to see where they'll roll out. The really interesting thing is that we've had a number of people on the show advocate that rolling out Waymo is a societal good. It will reduce the number of traffic fatalities. That's all true. But if you really want to accelerate the impact that Waymo will have on safety, you got to deploy it in Mississippi before you bring it to Massachusetts. I just feel like Waymo's coming to Boston before it comes to Vicksburg, but I don't know. It was fun. There's other love for Waymo on the timeline. First, let me tell you about Okta. Okta helps you assign every AI agent a trusted identity so you get the power of AI without the risk. Secure every agent, secure any agent. Mike Volpe. He said, I have to say, I love that Waymo operates from San Francisco to the South Bay. So great. Some folks say the freeway driving is so. I hadn't heard that. The antidote to that is I get into an Uber and do the same drive. It's literally life-threatening.
I was driving with Paul the other day, and I heard he was telling me about the different modes that Tesla has. I've never owned a Tesla, so I wasn't familiar. But did you know that Tesla actually has something called Mad Max mode for the autopilot, where it'll drive it like roughly around 85 on the freeways, and it will it'll if you're in the fast lane and you come up to somebody, it will merge over into the lane to the right, make a pass, and go back to 85.
That's insane.
Somehow feels slightly illegal, but I like it.
Okay, MongoDB. Choose a database built for flexibility and scale with the best-in-class embedding models and re-rankers. MongoDB has what you need to build what's next. We have an update in the Warner Brothers Netflix deal. Netflix, they're going all cash deal. Netflix had said to Paramount, hey, what we want is an all-cash deal. David Ellison and the Paramount crew, they brought Warner an all-cash deal, and Netflix or Warner was still saying, hey, we're going with Netflix. Now
they said,
Netflix has upgraded.
Bet.
So we can read through a little bit of this from the Wall Street Journal.
So Warner Brothers, Discovery, and Netflix said Tuesday they struck a new all-cash deal for Netflix to buy Warner Brothers Studios and HBO Max. Warner also released financial details on the cable network's business it plans to spin off. The all-cash deal of $27.75 per share replaces Netflix's previous cash and stock deal. The sweetened offer comes as rival bidder Paramount continues pushing its all-cash offer for all of Warner Discovery. The value of Netflix's offer remains $72 billion. Warner and Netflix said they expect the new structure to enable Warner shareholders to vote on the deal by April. The change could also help sway some shareholders who might be weighing its bid against Paramount's. Netflix co-CEO Greg Peters said in a statement that revised agreement demonstrates our commitment to the transaction and accelerates the process for Warner's shareholders. The new Netflix agreement reduces by $260 million the amount of Warner debt being placed on Discovery Global, the company that will house cable channels including CNN, TNT, and Food Network. There's also another, the next kind of thing that I was going to get to is interesting. CNN is doing $600 million in profit on revenue of $1.8 billion. So
what are we doing?
They are truly Newsmaxing. Quick size note for CNN.
Congratulations to everyone at CNN.
Not bad at all.
Absolute dog.
Of course, a ton of debt strapped to the broader group.
And Peter Kafka is saying that private equity should pick it up. It's a shrinking business that throws off cash. It's perfect for private equity. Let's give it up for private equity.
Let's give it up for
I know
Peter
Peter's a big fan. Equity. I'm a big fan.
Somebody, I was saying yesterday that maybe AI could save Hollywood. Somebody would. I knew that was going to piss a lot of people off for a lot of reasons.
I wasn't really clocking what you were saying either, and so we should talk about it more. But continue.
Well, one of the critiques was like, interesting to say that LA is dying as you're building a media business from LA.
Yep.
And my response is that we are in a huge complex. We're recording the show from a huge complex, and every other building in the complex is empty pretty much every single day.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing going. When I said LA is like dying, I was specifically talking about the context of the entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, there's that Wall Street Journal report that just shows sound stages were, typically leased 90% of the time, and it's just way off peak down to like 60%. And so there is like a broad trend, and then just in general, like I don't think we're necessarily at a phase in our life where we're like, okay, tabula rasa. Where's the best place to build this business? Let's go find that. It's like we live here.
Yeah, we didn't.
Things. We're not like, okay, we should go to Atlanta or something, or go to New York.
Yeah, we certainly didn't say like, let's start a media company because we live in LA.
It's like the current struggles that LA is having are not going to hold us back. If anything, it's going to be easier because we can get space and hire people.
Rents in 10 years ago, this space would have been like 2-3 times. The price to rent.
The bigger question is, there are these blips in industry towns that have happened many times. New York, famously in the 70s and 80s, went through a really rough patch. San Francisco, during COVID, everyone was moving out, and there was a real vibe of like, oh, is San Francisco going to be less relevant in tech? And then it came roaring back with the AI labs. And I think most people don't, debate that cities go through rough patches and then can come back. And so we certainly hope that LA comes back. It'd be fantastic. But there are a lot of changes that need to be made. And this has been said by a number of a number of famous people in Hollywood and Hollywood actors who have talked about different tax regimes, different incentives, different changes structurally to the way content is made and distributed. There's a lot of different elements that are contributing to LA having a rough go. At the same time, it's a fantastic city. It's where I was born and raised. I love it. I'm not going anywhere. You're going to have to pull me out of here.
He's not leaving. He's not leaving.
Gemini 3 Pro, Google's most intelligent model yet, state-of-the-art reasoning, next-level vibe coding, and deep multimodal understanding.
In its Tuesday filing, Warner projected $17 billion of revenue in 2026, adjusted, I won't explain EBITDA, but $5.4 billion of EBITDA. Those figures are expected to decline to 15.6 and 3.8 billion respectively in 2030. The only individual network projections were CNN, which I just shared. They're increasing. They're expecting to increase revenue to 2.2 billion in 2030, and expecting to continue to grow EBIT as well.
Well, Netflix seems to be doing everything right. As much as I enjoyed the David Ellison profile and learning more about how seriously he takes his business, it does feel like Netflix is just willing to pull out all the stops to get this across the finish line. And if they were able to match Paramount on the cash deal nature and all the different consideration, deal with the regulatory hurdles, it might take a long time, but it does still feel like they will land on it.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it just feels like I'm so curious to see how this works out, because it felt like the Ellisons were just putting on this absolute masterclass, and then this one, and then kind of ran into a brick wall with this, right?
Yeah,
but you could argue they overpaid by a ton for the UFC, which made sense if you had this again. Like if you have all these assets under one roof, it is going to be a really compelling consumer product, consumer subscription. But currently, kind of unclear who this kind of platform is really going to be for.
Yeah, it was also surprising to me because Netflix for 20 years has been pure play tech company, right? And many of the previous tech companies, when they come out, they haven't done a lot of acquisitions of legacy assets that I'm aware of, maybe. But I'm just thinking like social media sort of like disrupted the news business. Meta didn't go out and acquire the New York Times. They could have done some sort of hostile takeover. They have the money, but that never really figured into the business, and they wound up just working together synergistically. And now the New York Times has been growing across social media very effectively, and they've adapted their business model. Both businesses are doing well. They're sort of disruptive to each other, but ultimately they never decided to buy the legacy player. So it was always something that was never on my bingo card of, Netflix is going to buy, a TV channel or a movie studio or a traditional Hollywood player. That just didn't seem like something that was going to be, logically happening anytime soon. And yet here we are. And it makes a lot of sense when you think about the assets and the IP specifically and the longevity that will bring when you get Batman and Superman on Netflix. That's going to be exciting. Anyway, Sentry. Sentry shows developers what's broken and helps them fix it fast. That's why 150,000 organizations use it to keep their apps working. We got a deal. We got a pact. It's not just a deal, it's a pact. OpenAI and ServiceNow, they struck a deal to put AI agents into business software. ServiceNow, one of the greatest software companies in history, one of the few to reach revenues at their scale. The line from the Wall Street Journal is, the AI model maker and business software provider, they signed a 3-year pact. I like the word pact. That underscores how AI...
The partnership economy is over.
Yes, you got to do pacts.
Press release economy is over.
Yeah.
This is the pact economy.
No more deal guys, no more deal titans, deal makers, pact guys. That's what's next. This is going to underscore how AI agents are increasingly being embedded in corporate software. You heard Dario talk about where he's potentially going up against other labs on corporate B2B deals. He said OpenAI, he said DeepMind. He didn't really say, he said no China labs have ever competed. Well, ServiceNow went with OpenAI on this one. So they signed a 3-year deal that will integrate the AI models, ChatGPT's models, into ServiceNow's business software. The deal depends on customers using OpenAI's models within ServiceNow and also includes a revenue commitment from ServiceNow to OpenAI. Enterprises want OpenAI's intelligence applied directly into ServiceNow workflow, said Brad Lightcap, OpenAI's chief operating officer. Look ahead. Customers are especially interested in agentic and multimodal experiences so they can work with AI like a true teammate inside of ServiceNow. We've seen a lot of other companies add. We've talked to Mark Benioff about Slackbot. We've talked to Satya Nadella about Copilot. Like, if you have one of these massive software suites, enterprise software suites with just so much surface area, you're going to want to vend LLMs and agents into every little nook and cranny, and you probably don't want to build your own lab because it's going to be incredibly expensive when OpenAI will go and marshal the capital and build the data centers and train the models, and then you can just focus on the implementation and delivering value for your customers. So Salesforce has already folded AI agents into its flagship sales and marketing tools. SAP and Workday have been similarly pitching businesses on the idea that their embedded AI agents are essential to getting the value out of AI. The deal comes as OpenAI looks to build its enterprise business, both by selling direct access to its models and AI agents and through business software collaborations like with ServiceNow. It faces competition not just from rival AI model maker Anthropic, but also Google and Microsoft's suite of enterprise AI tools. For ServiceNow,
I want to find a company that is using the agents at ServiceNow or Salesforce or a company like that and saying, I can't live without these agents. I love these agents. We got to find one person.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just like really sort of like maybe a year or two behind on the actual implementation, but it's just like, oh, I get like daily summaries of what's going on in the system, and it's a little bit nicer and neater. And I could probably extract all the data and write an agent that does that, but it was just one click of a button to add it to my installation, and I did it, and it's adding a little bit of value. I don't think you're going to see anyone who's like, it's transformational. It just works on its own. I don't do anything. It's much more incremental than that. It's still in like an autocomplete phase, little helper tools there. It's Clippy. Clippy's going into every piece of enterprise software. And so people are having fun. ServiceNow increased revenue 22% in the third quarter as AI demand from both existing customers and new customers grew, particularly in its customer relationship management business. The software company will report its fourth quarter earnings and full 2025 financial results on January 28th. We got to do a deep dive that day. Anyway, AppLovin. Profitable advertising made easy with Axon.ai. Get access to over 1 billion daily active users and grow your business today.
What SaaS founders should know about entering the Japanese market?
Yeah, I found this on Hacker News, and I just thought it was interesting because we've talked to a few folks about expanding into Japan. It's not been on the top of the roadmap for many founders that we talked to, but I thought this was interesting, and I thought we could go through just a little bit of it, and then you can read the article if you want. So this is from embedworkflow.com. In one sentence, what's the difference between selling SaaS in Japan versus other countries? And the answer is the process is different. You just can't treat sales and go to market as a whole in Japan the same way you would in North America or Europe. Okay. The SaaS sales process in Japan is structurally different from the United States and other Western markets, primarily in terms of pace, decision-making style, and buyer behavior. It's not that Japanese companies are unwilling to try new software, but rather that they prefer to do significant research before engaging directly with a vendor. So many successful SaaS companies in Japan structure their websites with two primary calls to action. So one is just for downloading product documentation, and then the second is for booking a demo and starting a free trial. And most Japanese leads enter through the documentation path first. In America, we just want to get on the phone. We want to head straight to the...
I'm not reading the instructions.
I'm not reading the instructions.
No way. I don't have time to understand how this thing works.
I need to go straight to a steak dinner. Steak dinner first, then I'll figure out what your company does. But let's talk about golf first. Let's talk about a track day first. And then you can give me the pitch for your company. But
that would honestly, the steak dinner button on a SaaS website, it's like you can try the product now, or there's a button that's steak just dinner. Like the steak emoji, and if you click that, you can get steak today
on demand
with somebody on the team.
Yes. No matter where you
real
are,
time.
no matter where you
Real
just
time.
agentically books a steak restaurant.
I'm tired of all these people that are like, just take a demo and we'll give you some AirPods. Spend the money on steak. Take the AirPods budget and put a steak button on your website.
Steak button.
And have the steak flow.
The steak flow. Stakeholders. Stakeholders need steak. So in the U.S., the typical flow is that a prospect visits a website, books a demo on their own, or drops off and is followed up aggressively by sales. A conversion happens quickly. A proof of concept or trial begins, and the deal either closes or the buyer moves to a competitor. The cycle is fast and transactional. Buyers are comfortable testing tools, replacing them, and switching vendors if something doesn't work. In Japan, the process is slower and more deliberate. A company will usually download product materials first. The vendor then reaches out and begins a longer engagement process focused on education and relationship building rather than pushing for an immediate demo or trial. The goal is to support the buyer's internal evaluation process. The lead will take the information back to their organization and begin internal discussion about whether and how to proceed. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. How do you gain trust from the Japanese market? Part of it is showing your commitment to the Japanese market where simple things matter. Is your product localized? Is your documentation localized? Do you have a support person that I can speak Japanese with? That's one layer. And the other layer, which is harder to potentially navigate at first, is the social proof aspect. So you need to get some social proof. Anyway.
Yeah, I'd be so curious to know how like a company like Notion has done in Japan, right? It's product led.
Yeah.
They do have enterprise as well, but again, it's a product that just kind of scales naturally. But yeah, for so many different kind of like vertical SaaS players, it would feel like unless the Japanese startup ecosystem is asleep at the wheel and not paying attention to what's working outside, like can you imagine as a vertical SaaS player going and trying to compete in Japan against a talented local team?
It feels like it'd be very
it
hard.
feels like you just get smoked.
Yeah. Anyway, Vanta, automate compliance and security. Vanta is the leading AI trust management platform.
Max Hodak is
We got to
on
do this
tear.
one before we bring in our guest.
Fun fact, rather than asking Claude to double check its own work, you can lie to it and say Codex went romping through the code and left bugs and it should find them.
I like the idea that somewhere in the weights, all the drama of the AI lab battles are being encoded and creating bitter, deep rivalries. It's very funny. I saw something else about Claude just rejecting a prompt whole cloth. Did you see this? Somebody was like, rewrite this entire app in jQuery, and Claude was just like, no, that's a bad decision, bad use of resources. I'm not doing it. I don't know if that's real, but I thought it was very, very funny. Anyway. We have our first guest of the show, Martin Shkreli, in the Restream waiting room. We will bring him in the TBPN Ultra. Martin, how are you doing?
Great to see you.
What's up, guys?
Good to see you. Happy New Year. How is your year going so far?
Great. I'm a new dad, so that's
Congratulations.
They're pretty wild, yeah.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Has it been wild, or is it?
Where does it?
Is it more? Is it quite a bit more normal?
Yeah.
Like to me, parenting it does feel natural, and so there some people have this idea of like, oh, it's so insane, and it's so complicated, and I have to read 20 books, and other people is like kind of follow kind of your own nature and just like take care of your child. It is straightforward.
Yeah, I'm following my nature. I'm following my nature. The kid's got to produce at some point. He's starting to come into work like once a month.
There we go.
Comes in, goes gagas, entertains the troops here.
Perfect.
But at some point, some trades, something, do something.
Yep.
Put some trades on.
Yeah, you got to find some alpha.
Have some conviction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How big's what's the environment like in your office? You guys have remote component? Are you anti-remote?
No remote. Remote is evil. I think that if you're going to war together, you can't go to war remotely. It's my people fought the Ottoman Empire, and one man, famous general, stopped the Ottoman Empire largely by himself, and at least that's the legend. And if we're gonna take on Bloomberg or whoever we're fighting, I just don't think you could do it with some guy sitting in, at home with his feet up.
What's the current battle that you guys are fighting, and how is the war going overall?
We're going great. We just closed a seed round. We raised 5.
Whoa.
All right.
Congratulations.
Did you?
Fantastic news.
We raised 2 like a year ago
Okay.
to get the ball rolling, or a year and a half ago. We raised 5 as a seed round, and then we'll probably do like a 10, 20, 30, something like that this year as an A. We have a lot of revenue. We're almost profitable.
That's great.
It's, the interesting thing about financial software is traders want to try everything. Like they just, it's the greatest business in the world. And, you do have to have domain expertise, which nobody has. So I think that's a lot of fun. We also might get into MC.
Do you mean nobody in tech has?
Yeah, that. The people with, our customers are brilliant. The people who are in finance have financial expertise, or at least many of them, believe they do. Obviously, to some extent, it's like a casino, and you're sort of arming them with tools. A lot of the tools haven't changed. I do have this thing I want to show you guys when I'm ready. I think we're going to call it like SIT or sit rep or SITch. It's going to be like the situation monitoring suite. That's
perfect.
Just like Bloomberg has these like fake systems they're pretty awful, but there's something where you could like see the map and you can kind of see different things happening, like earthquakes or whatever. But like take that and actually make it really good. I think people would truly want to monitor situations. I think that's a new, like there's no situation.
It's a new hobby.
I think it's a new sector.
Yeah, it's a new category. It's a prosumer category because people I think actually enjoy it so much that it's like camping where I think people will be willing to spend money. Like
totally. So think about the revenue of Bloomberg with 8 billion, 10 billion, whatever. A satellite constellation, maybe it's 100 mil. And imagine if you're sitting at Citadel or Millennium or some hedge fund or Fidelity or something, and you're literally tasking a satellite. Like, no, actually, I want a satellite to point here. What margin difference would it make? You could probably pass through. You'd probably be accretive to EBITDA to have your own constellations like satellite constellation, and then things like drones or maybe there's Bloomberg right now. I think they have like ships and shipping routes and flights and like kind of fairly boring stuff, but you could make it 100 times better. So that'll be fun when it's ready. And again, this is all inspired. This whole sector started with the Bezos kind of.
That's right.
It really did.
What's your take on prediction markets? Do you enjoy them? Do you think that they're valuable uses of information? Do you think it all just winds up being sports betting? Like where does all this go?
And we will be trading
on what you say
here. So
do you guys get paid? No.
I'm
super.
I have 1,000x long on you saying biotech at some point during this show. No.
All $3 on it.
Yeah, exactly. No, but what do you think on prediction markets? Valuable, useful? Do you use them? Do you trade?
Yeah, it's great. It's a great question. I mean, I think it's probably like social media, like the first social media companies. If you like go back into like that Steve Levy book about Facebook, which I think is just fantastic, like almost documenting every part of it. There were a couple of very random, even before Friendster, a couple of these really proto social media companies, and the sector exploded. I think that's where we're at. I don't think, I wish the companies the best of luck, except for Kalshi, but the two companies. But I do think that, markets have been around for, hundreds of years, if not longer. And ICE and SIBO and these other companies are publicly traded. They don't sit there and twiddle their thumbs and say, gee, I hope some creative new market comes along. They make financial products all the time that fail. They innovate, they add new things, and then they actually take them down because they don't catch fire in Wall Street. So if you want to be like that micro kind of, micro markets sort of pioneer, it's interesting, but it's sort of still like you get into scale problems with like who actually arbitrates some of these bets. Obviously sports is easy and some of these other things, but how much are you just financializing for financializing's sake?
Sure.
And is that sustainable when you actually need people with tons of money to fight the arbitrage gradient? If you're betting, so in full disclosure, I've been running the spot on Polymarket that makes a market in the Bitcoin 15-minute markets, which are somewhat inefficient. And nobody needs to trade this, right? There's no actual, benefit to trading this other than you can take 2 to the n bets, so you get around, I guess, 96 bets a day. And if you somehow, the money velocity of getting a lot of those right, you can compound insanely well. Of course, it's random. But, people, hope springs eternal that you could somehow get the rhythm of the market every 15 minutes. And you can, I think somebody posted on Polymarket that they took a very small amount of money and a very large amount of money. So, it is kind of I think it's a bit of a waste of ingenuity and engineering. And we're working on trying to sort of make a prediction market that might be more relevant, say, to private companies. Right now, the binary outcomes of prediction markets have forced you into this box of like, will OpenAI go public this year? Will SpaceX hit $1 trillion valuation? Why can't it just be dollar for dollar? Why not this is just a market that pays you N dollars per, a swap. So, and I'm sure that might be being worked on by other companies, but I think that's like an economically rational thing. So the spirit is there. Like, we should have our own markets. We should be able to deploy whatever we want, but actually make it make sense. I think they're still trying to figure that out.
What is the state of tracking large, late-stage private companies' valuations? We have a ticker at the bottom with, Mag 7 big tech companies with market caps. I would love to add Anthropic, OpenAI, but I saw some debate over, how you actually get the data, how reliable it is. Explain.
I got into it Lonsdale. I unfollowed him. I unfollowed him for 5 minutes because of it. I was just so mad.
Brutal.
Because
worst 5 minutes of his life.
Worst 5 minutes.
I might have made it a few days, but eventually I relented. But
capitulated.
I think that what Lonsdale's saying is right in that if he gets invited to a deal for say Ramp or whoever, he was complaining that my Ramp number was too low, and okay, fine, that's fine. But it's the same thing as insider info in the stock market. So you have insider info, great. Ramp's going to trade up 50% higher than my number. He's like, your number's wrong. Well, it's no different from me saying, well, the NVIDIA number's wrong, but I know they're going to have a blowout quarter. How am I supposed to know that? My market only reflects the people trading on it, not, the news before everyone else knows it, which is in private, as guys know very well, in private world, that's and that's to be expected. Otherwise, you won't part with your money. But in the public world, you're not supposed to have that information edge. So he's so used to having the information edge because I'm sure he gets invited to many, many great deals that he knows, the price is about to change. And so SpaceX is a really funny example. On our platform, SpaceX price has tripled because Elon sort of dropped this bomb that like, we're going to do a buyback at this crazy price. Obviously not crazy to him, but to the marketplace, they're like, what? WTF? It's like more than doubled in the last few months.
Wow.
And a lot of the stuff late stage, if somebody, there's so much demand and there's so little supply that if somebody comes to you and they're like, hey, I've got SpaceX at $1.5 trillion, and somebody's like, if I believe Elon can get this thing out at $1.5 trillion, sure, I'm going to be flat over until they get out or whatever, but at least I'm in, right? So I don't know. People will start to be able to justify almost any price up until that point.
Sure, and I know Matt Grimm is on this warpath against these
SPV hustlers.
Yeah. So I feel like the only solution is we have to have a private. We have to be able to trade just like Polymarket, private companies, and there's a big battle brewing behind the scenes over this. We'll see what comes of it. But
okay, speaking of Elon, speaking of XAI, SpaceX, walk me through all of the internal secrets that you learned from the infamous podcast.
First of all, if your most junior employee went on a cinematic podcast for 90 minutes and just told all about Godel and everything, would you?
How would you react?
How would you react?
I think my first week in hedge funds, I thought this was a good idea, and my sense for asking the boss just kicked in at the last second.
Wait, so you were going to call up Bloomberg and say, I got to tell you, we're working on some exciting stuff. I got to tell you about some of our new trading strategies.
This specific market is wildly mispriced, and we're going to make a killing.
We're printing.
I was long the stock, and the company told me, we're doing this newspaper piece. Do you mind giving a quote for it since you're our investor? And I told our CFO, I said, I'm going to be doing this, just so you know. And he's like, no,
you will not be doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did you actually learn from the XAI deep dive?
I think it's less about learnings and more about like just the gumption of like the way you answer questions. I can understand like, look, you're an engineer, or you should be able to go on a podcast. Questions come up about XAI. You probably see, look, I can't really talk about it. You might drop a few things, but he was really like, people asked, the interviewer asked him, how is Optimus going to roll out? And he was like, let me tell you. That's Elon's job. It's not yours. And so the real reason I kind of came after this guy in a not so like kind of an oblique way is he had. I looked up this guy. I have a lot of friends at XA. I was like, who is this guy? And he had blocked me. I said, oh no, this is a big thing. So I'm going to amplify, that you did this. And again, I think the guy was fired. At least the second he went on the show. I doubt that I had any part to do with it, but I definitely didn't mind amplifying the insane kind of decision he made. And, if you block me, that's Rokana.
He blocked you too?
No, he came at me for absolutely no reason. I said, I replied to his tweet like 80 million other people, like, this is a bad move. And I wasn't a dickhead. I was like, look, I think that the problem is that it's not the billionaires it's the billionaires and their teams, right? So if Peter leaves California, if Palmer leaves California, if Elon leaves California, it's not just them who leave. It works for them. And it's every florist that works for those guys. I'm trying to find a florist. It's every
because you have the highly productive, high agency team members that are like, I want to be in the same building as my boss every single day because I don't want to go to war remotely, like you said. And if I'm going to be a serious player at this company, I need to have proximity to the person. I mean,
the average billionaire family office has got to be 50 employees, their families. Like it gets pretty big when you think about the footprint.
Or even, just the companies they're running, right? Yeah. I mean, just the companies they're running. If it's there has to be a ton of new employment in Texas because of this, and I'm sure it'll only continue.
Our friend Jordan was just saying that he's like, Rokana is just rage baiting you guys, and you just completely played into it.
Now he's famous.
I think that's. I'm sure Ro will use this to set up, his next play, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you're going to leave. I don't care if if you're just using this as a stepping stone to go to the national stage, being like, I stood up against the California billionaires that weren't playing their fair share. Well, I live in California, and we still have to live with the consequences of your political ambitions, right? And pushing something that's so obviously, I said what do you want California to become? Like an agrarian society, where it's just agriculture and vineyards and tourism. There's a lot of every other state will be happy to take these jobs and host these companies. And I don't think we should just hand them all over.
What's really crazy is my partner's at one of the big AI labs, and if she leaves California and then sells her stock, California will kind of come after you. And someone just posted this really almost like fascist letter that the California Tax Department sent them. I don't know if you guys saw this.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, it was insane.
It was basically the letter was like, we want to understand the narrative of why you left California. It's like, spin us a yarn. Tell us a story on how you decided on how you had the audacity to leave this state.
Yeah,
I'm shocked by it.
Yeah, on XAI, did the podcast make you more bullish on the strategy at at XAI specifically? Were there things that you thought were particularly exciting about what was laid out, or things that you thought were maybe misunderstood or mispriced?
It's hard to tell from the junior engineer. I think you get a window, which is great, but it's also. It's Elon's show, and the risk of over-indexing to something like that is okay, this guy saw it, he worked there, that's cool, but what is Elon really thinking? And I think that there's this new thing coming from the AI companies that nobody's expecting. And, I wanted to see if he was going to drop sort of that. And I think all of the labs are gearing up to think about this. And it's sort of this new derivative of kind of the outcomes of AGI. And I think almost nobody in the market's talking about it. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the next, I'll just, leave a teaser there. see how the next
no teasers. Unpack it for us. Break it down.
5 to 10 years. I can't.
You can't. Okay.
The next 5 to 10 years comes, but I think that the question is really what can AI really do?
Yeah.
And I think that we very much over-indexed to chatbots and LLMs, and like a good new direction. People have talked about endlessly is robotics.
Yeah.
But imagine there's 50 new directions. And I think that. I hate to say something like this changes everything, but like there's a couple of clever ones I think coming that just haven't been seen yet. And I think the smaller, like the non-Google, non-Microsoft type of players, including X is kind of what I'm thinking about, are actually thinking about this very, very heavily. And macro-hard, I guess macro-hard is kind of, an example of like, what is that really?
Yeah.
And what's really going to be macro-hard as we see macro-hard be revealed more and more. I think there's a lot more to that than, in some ways, I think macro-hard is going to be bigger than XAI. It's all one entity, if I'm not mistaken, but macro-hard is probably worth more than XAI. And I think that we just don't know what's coming out of that. And we also know about Elon's AI gaming ambition, which I think, and I don't know if you guys have seen Martin Casado's coding. It's very cool stuff. And, it's amazing that guy can invest and do that stuff. And I think one leads to the other. I sort of do the same thing for my end. I want to talk to you about really fast this idea of photonic computing, which I think time is coming. Okay, explain. So photonic computing is what it sounds like. It's using light instead of electrons to compute. It's been around for 50 years. It's sort of like quantum's ugly stepsister, but I think it's actually the belle of the ball because there are very few companies working on this. You probably know all about it from interconnects, and silicon photonics as well. But recently in Nature and a few other like preeminent sort of journals, especially Chinese companies have shown that you can do map moles with light. And it's actually pretty remarkable. Light goes to 100 terahertz, but it's more important than that. It actually is you can do 3D map moles and they're O of 1 complexity. So it's a pretty insane speed up versus GPU. GPUs are great, but they're almost too general, which is why TPUs have sort of been there. But if you throw out the need for, lots of different instructions, you just need to do a map mole, which as you guys know is 95% of what a GPU chip is doing all the time. A map mole is done with light very naturally through constructive and destructive interference. It just nature does it. So I think this could be an interesting new space, and I'm spending a lot of time on it, and very curious about could there be a chip? There's a couple of private companies, and I'm starting to dig around and see what's what here. I think most people stop short of actually making the full photonic computer because they need revenue, they need earnings, they need something. And Celestial AI got bought out by Marvel. There's some attempt to sort of to push more and more of, like, we used to use copper wires to transmit information. Now we use photonics and fiber. And more of the chip and more of the entire global kind of computer infrastructure is going photonic. And maybe the whole thing goes photonic someday. And that electricity is actually the odd man out. Photons don't have some properties that are perfect for computing, but others, like in the case of map moles, which is now like most of the compute we need in the world, they're actually kind of perfect. So it'll be interesting to see if there's one private Chinese company called Lightelligence, and it sort of has a foot in the rest of the world. They're in Singapore, but they're also a foot in China. They started at MIT, so they're privately held. There's Light Matter, which it's not really clear that they're still pursuing kind of all optical photonics. And then Microsoft's done a little bit in space too. So I'm really interested in this. This is the potential next, like, as we think as Grok, the acquisition of Grok has sort of, and the quantum insanity. This is kind of why I care about this in the first place as a biotech guy. This is very weird for me to think about this, but the Grok acquisition for 20 billion, the quantum crap that's trading for 10 or 20 billion, people really want to think about what's next in compute. And of course, the unconventional and their raise at 5 billion just for a new co. It's all sort of clear that anything that can be an NVIDIA map mole, in my opinion, could be worth trillions.
What's the state of the quantum computing market? It seems like the companies have not sold off, but you went viral on a podcast sort of breaking down your overall thesis. Is the market sort of waking up to your way of seeing the timelines around quantum computing or the impact of quantum computing? Or is there still more work to be done on your end?
Yeah, so I think there's no more thinking that needs to be done. I think this is a war of attrition where both sides are right. And this is why I kind of started to look for other kinds of compute. And as you know, our great friend Jeff Bezos has his own kind of compute. So like the point is you got a 5 trillion market cap. And if you bought a stock at 5 billion, which is not a small cap, that's a big company.
Yeah.
Most of us would be very happy to exit at 5 billion. You can still get 1,000x.
That's
right.
crazy.
If it's the next NVIDIA. So if you even have a 0.1% chance that one of these quantum stupid companies is the next NVIDIA, I mean, take a flyer, you get 1,000x. So I feel like there kind of is a rational thinking there, even if it's impossible. You know, who's to say what's the difference between 0.1 and 0.0? It's the kind of difference I think about, but most other people don't care. And so any chance to get, it's like the menu problem. What's on the menu for the average Joe versus what's on the menu for you and me? We might get in a Grok round. We might get in an unconventional round. The average person can't, but they can buy $2,000 Rigetti or D-Wave off their Robinhood, and maybe they'll get the same kind of, you know, self-manifesting in some ways, you know, beta.
Yeah.
But I'm also curious if you guys want to talk at some point, expand this and talk about biotech more.
Yeah, sure.
Because
I would love. I mean, I'm like give us a lay of the land currently, how you're thinking about the year broadly, what's exciting, what's maybe being oversold about AI's potential impact in biotech versus being underappreciated.
Yeah, I think that the NVIDIA Lilly have announced this big partnership.
Yep.
And I've been thinking about drugs and AI more and more and more, and I feel like there is something to do here, but it's not the stuff that everyone thinks about, like drug discovery itself for small molecules or even proteins. I'm not sure AI is very useful. We have great forcing functions for that, whether they're physical chemists or software. You don't need a 10x or 100x improvement in that. The actual part of drug discovery, and I can say this as a very worn out drug company CEO, the biggest problem of drug companies is the people. And there's fantastic people that work at drug companies. It's just that you have 10, 15, 20 different departments that have to talk to each other, whether it's toxicology, preclinical, PK, there's all these little subsections. They all have to talk to each other, and everything gets lost in the translation. Project management is supposed to sit on top of all that. It just often makes it worse. And so you have this like impossible, you talk to anybody that works in big pharma and they'll tell you how ugly it is. And so if you had a machine doing it, it'd probably work better. And I think that more and more companies are gonna, whether it's a drug company or a law firm or anything else, there's going to be these sort of self-organizing, more decision-making gets pushed down. Sometimes I ask ChatGPT about, what would be a better marketing strategy, or how do I get more users? What should I do with it? It's like, oh, have you thought about, this? And, sometimes you'll get something surprising. So I think that's sort of the angle I'd play for drug companies. There's so much inertia. Oftentimes the CEO will like kill a drug for no reason. He'll promote another drug for no reason. The data says no. The chief scientist, has a personal vendetta with another company, so really wants to push that drug. Like there's all these irrational decisions that get made over what's basically hundreds of millions of dollars to spend. And it's remarkably inefficient. So when Vivek came in to try to really upset the apple cart here, as I did too, we sort of did the same thing. It was a little tricky because it's just not an industry that moves fast and breaks things. And for all the occasional luck you get on a drug, there's a lot of that luck is distributed as well. So Vivek got a lot of bad luck sometimes with Roivant. He got a couple of things of good luck. It's done fine. But it's very hard to get the compounding effects that you get. So Lilly has somehow been able to do it because that drug is not going to go generic. But again, the problem is you make a great drug, you have a good hit, you have 10 years to make money and that's it. And so, none of these AI companies would be worth anything if in 10 years they all had to give up their assets because there was a generic AI company. So I feel like drugs still are in this perilous situation. The whole industry is sort of cooked because there's fewer and fewer drug targets to go after.
Yeah.
So we keep fighting over the smallest number of patients in these random diseases, sometimes like the skinniest slice of cancer where there's like 600 people have it, and there's like 12 drug companies that are developing a drug for it. And so there's overcapacity in the industry. I mean, the same thing happened in steel and some other places, and we arguably have too much going on. And the real fear right now is China. The China drug development capability has gotten so good that there's really no.
Well, who was it that was saying like, yeah,
was the China
I would hate. We all want to cure cancer, but I would hate if China cured it before us.
Which is a wild quote. It's wild.
Yeah.
On the AI impact in pharma drug discovery, what is the lever that we should be watching between more frontier models, basically raising the IQ, making them smarter, more knowledgeable, versus just speeding them up, getting the state-of-the-art models running on Grok or Cerebrus so that it's faster, so you can do more? Or is it more of like a adoption, diffusion, training? You need to just get the CEO to actually turn AI loose in the organization. It's like a change management problem.
Well, I think, you mentioned HR, and one thing I think XAI should do is take a little bit of macro hard and build an HR function that when employees say, hey, can I go on a podcast?
It just says no.
Just quickly, run.
I think it'd just be an if statement.
And it's like, yeah, if Elon, yes.
If podcast mentioned, say no. Anyway, it's keys to success in AI and bio.
I think pharma is a misunderstood business. So there was this sort of drug goat, this guy named Paul Janssen. So he created Janssen, and Janssen was acquired by J&J. But Janssen himself just personally invented, I think half a dozen to a dozen critical medicines, not like Me Too's or anything like that, but like he personally discovered, I think the first antipsychotic, fentanyl. Several massive.
From the creator of fentanyl, we have anti.
It wasn't that back then, right?
No, it was good. It's very useful. Yeah, in many cases.
How are you processing the peptide boom?
Yeah.
Well, that whole thing is another story, but I want to get back to Paul. So
sure.
There's statues of this guy, et cetera. We need more Paul Janssens, whether they're digital synthetic sort of intelligence or not.
Yeah.
The drug industry is an idea industry.
Okay.
It is not an industrial process. It's some guy sitting down saying, you know what I think would stop cancer if we made an HDAC inhibitor? Well, actually, people tried that. It doesn't work. And then somebody saying, I read a paper about this, and actually maybe this would do it.
It's the same thing as like getting a digital Ilya who can just go and try a bunch of AI research ideas. You get the AI researcher in a box, turn that loose, and then that unfurls into progress. Certainly a challenge. Is that constrained by hardware, compute, scale? Are you still scaling pilled, or is there an idea that will lead to that?
It's a great question, because in the old days, if you wanted to run computer experiments, you didn't need much cost. In fact, that was the attraction. It's like you sit there and write code. Yeah. And now it's like, no, I need a cluster. Yeah. And for drugs, it's sort of has always been an expensive capital, thing. But in the scheme of things, it's cheaper than AI. And it's kind of like. You could probably get some proof of concept in animals and people for less than you might imagine, and then from there you could develop a portfolio of drugs. So I think that getting the idea part of the drug discovery industry more sort of capable is one thing AI can help a lot with, and that downstream makes less expenses in clinical trial development and also the decision making. Somebody looking at the data and saying, look, this drug is a dog. Let's not do a phase 2. Let's not do a phase 3. And oftentimes the scientists and the companies have Wall Street wants us to see us in phase 3. We can't really fall behind our rival. And they'll often push, I'd say up to a half of all drugs in clinical trials shouldn't be in clinical trials. And, that's a lot of money wasted. That's a lot of patient time wasted. And a lot of it is pushed by other incentives and other things like that. So I think AI has a lot of, potential for drug discovery. But every time I talk to somebody that wants to talk about AI and drug discovery, they've never been at a drug company. They've never actually done it. And when you do it, you realize it's much more about who's Paul Janssen discovering the next, bunch of hits, and who was lucky and got a one-hit wonder, and then who just sucks in general, like Pfizer or something. And so you sort of have to generate those ideas. It's almost like an investor in hedge funds.
It's interesting because I feel like I can't remember who exactly, but there was somebody on the show that was saying we don't need. It's not that we don't need more ideas. We need a cost reduction across the rest, everything from that point.
Yeah.
But most of the cost is clinical trials. So
So what you were saying is like if you have these 15 departments, and if you can somehow make it so that you can have is it a head count? Like how much is like a head count reduction actually going to impact the overall cost?
I think it's all clinical trials. Like, so once you've invented a drug, say that costs 10 to 50 million, the next 400 or 500 million is going to find a bunch of people to try it and compare it to placebo, because you have to monitor those people so carefully and so closely that it ends up being this massive cost across, tons of clinical trials. That's the hard part. If you could just take shots in goal for 50 million, 20 million left and right, you'd have a really productive drug industry. But unfortunately, getting 10,000 people to take a new diabetes drug it's pulling teeth. And you have to really, incentivize doctors and patients, meaning you have to pay them. And once they do that, you have to pay the company that collects the data. You have to pay the company that, puts it together, sends it to the FDA. All that stuff is just massive paperwork. And it's a lot of it's done.
How is China's process for running clinical trials different than ours?
Very similar, but I think the wages that they pay the people to collect all the stuff is less. And I think that they sort of have it a little more streamlined. I mean, it's amazing what they can do. So one of the things that confused me about China the first time I looked at it in biotech was the average mid-sized American biotech is 100 people, 200 people, maybe 300. But in China, it's 6,000 people work, same market cap. And I go, wow, how? What are they doing? It's no, we have 800 chemists sitting here. What are they doing?
Is that just because of the structure in America? We have more labs and consultants, and we still employ 6,000 people, but it's all at secondary and third tier supply chain companies?
Markets. Maybe. I think it might be more capital markets where it's they raise the same amount we raise in the Hong Kong market. So you raise 300 million. So what does 300 million buy you in China?
A lot more people.
Buys you 800 chemists.
800 chemists.
Buys you about 40 chemists in San Diego. So.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Wanted your take on the peptides boom.
Yeah. Peptides are, every time somebody asks me about it, I have to laugh because peptide is defined as a small protein. And so what you're really asking is, what is my take on the unapproved self-medication boom? And when you phrase it that way, it sounds insane.
No. And that's to me, I tried a peptide cycle probably 5 years ago, and I was like, okay, this is cool, and I noticed a moderate effect. But I also acknowledge that I'm administering effectively an experiment. An experimental drug is not the right framing, but it's not the same as walking into Erewhon and getting some vitamin D and having a daily supplement.
Exactly,
you're doing an injection. The source matters a ton, and it is far closer to taking a round of anabolic steroids than it is adding some creatine to your smoothie.
I just think it's nuts. I mean, if you think it's a good idea to do your own research on medicine, self-medicate, and on uncontrolled substances that are manufactured, God knows where, that have not been in clinical trials. And I mean, I'm as libertarian as it gets, but I just don't understand what the impetus is to take foreign substances without some emergency need. And it boggles my mind because, people, there's some psychological phenomenon where people need to feel in control, or they need something in their life that they feel like they're taking a risk on, or, it's nuts. I mean, why would you do it?
Well, and explain why there probably will never be clinical trials for these drugs.
Right. There's this edge case where, you have a cosmeceutical in essence, or kind of something that doesn't quite fit what's a disease to the FDA. So a good example is premature ejaculation. So the FDA does not consider that an illness. European drug regulators do. And so you can get approved for impotence in America because it's actually sort of a medical problem where it's if I can't, copulate and reproduce, it's a big medical kind of emergency in a sense. Premature ejaculation is sort of like, well, you have it. This is what it is. So the FDA has never been willing to approve. A company a long time ago tried to get an old J&J drug called Duloxetine approved for premature ejaculation, and the FDA basically said there's no set of circumstances where we will approve this. And what's weird about that is, okay, well, what if you actually do suffer this? And it's a severe psychological detriment. As much as we joke about it, people joked about erectile dysfunction a long time ago, and it's a serious illness to many. So you sort of live in this twilight of like, well, I know what drug works. This drug Duloxetine actually does work, but I also know it'll never be FDA approved. So what do I do? And in some ways, you're sort of like, I'm taking an unapproved, technically illegal substance and I'm buying it off some shady, third-party market. So eventually I think we need to find a way, just like almost like what we just talked about for prediction markets. You have these third markets where it's like, yeah, you can bet on, what Trump's going to say in a speech, and it's not registered stock exchange, but it's also more than just you and me making a side bet. And it's the same thing with this, where it's like Duloxetine is not a peptide, but Duloxetine is medically useful for that disease. If you call it a disease, FDA won't say no. So it's not like I'm taking some random goop. It's a real medicine, but it's in this middle of like, what do you do with this thing? And so much of what we do as investors or whatever is in that middle. Uber, you could sort of define Uber as in that weird middle as well. So I think eventually, we need to address, like, it's not as insane as maybe I'm making it out to be. I think some of it is, but eventually you need to address this, like, how do we do peptides?
Well, even like, BPC 157. Like, there's no incentive to spend the tens of millions of dollars on trials. Like, you would need some type of trade group or something in order to fund that. Because if one company did it, then every company would get the benefit of it. So why would one company spend the tens of millions of dollars?
We have an app for that. In drug development, we have an app for that. We can take that drug, twist it, change it, figure out, make it better, and then you get a new patent, and then you have an incentive. So there is sort of a way to do that, and that's not uncommon. I mean, trolling around PubMed looking for, this drug actually does something. I'll take it to my boss at Merck. Boss says no patent. Come back the next day and say, here's the same drug with a nitrogen atom coming out of here. It's going to work the same way. And he says, all right, maybe we should run with that.
Run it.
Yeah.
Run it.
Well, thank you so much for
always
on
fun.
The show. So
always
much fun. Come back soon.
Come back on again soon. I have a bunch more questions I want to ask about Godel and everything, but good to see you.
Yeah.
And happy
congrats
New
on
Year.
the progress. And congrats on becoming a father.
Yeah, fatherhood. Massive.
Massive news.
Great stuff.
We'll talk to you
Cheers.
soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. Phantom Cash. Fund your wallet without exchanges or middlemen and spend with the Phantom Card. Our next guest is Bradley Tusk, the founder and CEO of Tusk Ventures. You might know him from his work with Uber. Thank you so much for waiting. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Fantastic. I am upset that it took us over 1,000 guests.
I know.
On,
yeah,
I know. I have to say.
I know.
So you just hired a friend of mine named Jackson Fortis. Do you guys know him?
We love Jackson.
Yeah. So I literally had the call with him a few weeks ago where he's like, "What do I do with my life?" And I said, "Take the job."
Amazing.
And I said, those assholes have never had me on. And so those two things came together. But
I'm glad we could do it.
Yeah, but you're getting an incredible person in that hire. So good, really nice job there.
We love Jackson.
That's great news. Tell us about the bookstore. I heard that you have a bookstore.
I do. So first of all, anyone who's looking to lose money, I highly recommend owning a bookstore.
Yes.
So I've written a couple of books. I had started this thing called the Gotham Book Prize in 2020. In fact, we announced the nominees for this year today. And I'd always thought one day it'd be fun to own a bookstore, but kind of thing you would just do later in life. And then during COVID, New York City just got whacked by everything. And we lost, 500,000 jobs. And my thought was, look, if you're going to do something nice for the city from a retail perspective, because I knew I wasn't ever going to make money on it, now's the time, right? Don't wait till you're 70 or whatever it is. And so we started looking for space, and we found one on Orchard Street on the Lower East Side, if anyone knows where that is. And it's a great spot. So it's about 3,500 square feet. It's an indie bookstore. It's a podcast studio that is free for anyone to use. You just go on our website, and you can sign up and use it. If you guys are over in New York, you're welcome to use the studio. We've got an event space. We built an amphitheater that seats about 80. So we have authors or different types of events like open mic teenage poetry or whatever, pretty much something every night, and a cafe. And the store has a funny name. And the reason why is, so when I leased the space, I texted my dad and said, didn't the store that my grandfather started when they came to this country in 1950, wasn't it right around here? Because that store was closed before I was born, but I knew it was right around there. And he's like, yeah, it was 1 block over on Allen Street. And I said, remind me the name. And he said, P&T Knitwear, because, if you were an uneducated Jew that survived World War II, the one job you could get in the U.S., especially New York, was in the garment business. And so my grandfather started a sweater company. No way. And then my dad wrote P&T Knitwear, but you cannot name a bookstore P&T Knitwear. So, of course, our store is called P&T Knitwear. So that's our store. And other than the fact that, nobody buys books, it is a really fun business to own and run and a fun place to hang out. So anyone who is watching, if you happen to be in New York, you like bookstores, check us out.
That's very cool.
What's it going to take to get it profitable?
I don't think it's possible. There's actually not one. So because I've looked at okay, let's say I ran it aggressively. We charge for the studio, we charge for the event space, we didn't give the employees health care, all this, other stuff. We would still lose money. So I don't quite understand how somebody actually makes a living running a bookstore. I'm sure Manhattan's sort of the worst place to do it. Yeah. But even like in LA, like my friend Zibby has a great bookstore in Santa Monica, but the same thing. She's, lucky to, have other money, and part of the way she uses it is to have this indie bookstore. So it does seem like, sadly, bookstore ownership these days is somewhat equated with philanthropy.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
Let's get back to business. I want to talk about specifically these businesses that you've been involved with, where you've been so helpful to founders on the local and state regulation level, how companies position themselves. It feels like every company right now is focused on what's happening in DC, the federal level. How do you think about what's different when you're working with a company at the local level? What's the playbook? What works if you have a problem and you need to change local laws? What are you recommending to new founders?
Yeah. So, the first thing is, look, human beings naturally, or Americans at least, when you say the words government or politics, your mind kind of instinctively goes to DC. So you think about the Capitol, the White House, Trump, whatever it is. Yeah. But the reality is, most regulation, including most tech regulation, does not happen at the federal level. There's some crypto, biotech, but by and large, most things that touch a consumer in some way, directly or indirectly, are regulated either by state government or local government. And that's actually a good thing. So what everyone thinks is, I'd rather solve my problem at the federal level. It's a one-shop stopping, whatever. I got my thing done, I'm set. But, the phrase and act of Congress is literally synonymous with a miracle, right? You can't base investment strategies on miracles. Whereas in states, and you guys had my friends, Adam and Matt from Doctronic on a few weeks ago, where we worked with them to make Utah the first state to allow prescription via AI. That's right. In states, you can get things done. And we don't necessarily win in every state every time, but like 50 bites at the apple, we can figure out this makes sense for a red state strategy, blue state, whatever it might be. It might not matter in that way. And because states have sort of 6-month legislative sessions in which typically a couple of hundred bills on average pass, you have a reasonable chance of getting your same thing done if you run a good campaign. And then once you establish precedent for it in one state, you have a stronger argument to then go forward in others. And so when we decide what we want to work on and what we want to invest in, we highly prioritize companies that can get their stuff done at the state and local level, because I don't invest in stuff where I don't think that we can move the needle for the company itself. And I think our odds of doing that are so much better outside of Washington.
How confident were you that you guys could get this a deal like the one you got done in Utah with Doctronic? Like when you invested,
I was a little surprised.
Yeah, because we
kept having to be like, really? That's what happened?
Yeah,
really? You can do this?
I know. Even we when we literally, the people who do this for a living, right? I think I'm the only fund that does this.
Yeah.
And even we were like, wow, that one was pretty cool. But there are states that are very thoughtful around AI regulation, and there are a couple of states, Utah, Texas, Arizona, Kentucky, that have created regulatory sandboxes. You guys know what that is?
Little bit.
It's effectively like a notion of saying, okay, you know what? There's this thing that we know is really important. We know it's going to take experimentation. And rather than subjecting it to the political process, let's put together a team of experts who can, at least on a provisional basis, say, we're going to try out these ideas in our state, and as long as it's working the way we thought, it'll keep going. And those are 4 states that have chosen to do that, and so those were the obvious places for us to start. Utah is just a really well-run state. Governor Cox is an excellent governor, and they're not a typical state for a lot of reasons. And also, they're becoming a very, very tech-forward and friendly state because you're seeing migration, especially from California, let alone before the billionaires referendum tax thing happens. Utah is becoming, Silicon Slopes, they're calling it. So, we're going to Texas next, which is a giant market, obviously the second biggest in the country. Once we start showing that it works, even if you think, so the very first tech company that I worked with was Uber. Started doing that early 2011. And the thing that Travis Kalanick, who was the founder and CEO of Uber at the time, understood, and he was right about, is just get the genie out of the bottle. I mean, Travis didn't pretend to understand politics, but what he did know was that he had a product that was meaningfully better than the status quo. And if you guys think back to the first couple of times you used Uber, it was magic, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't believe it. You just pressed a button and this nice car showed up, and here they were, and you have to hail it down or deal with some crazy cab company or anything else. And we knew that once people saw that it worked, they would fight for it, and the arguments against it would get weaker and weaker, and we were able to effectively mobilize our customer base.
Well, you have the two. It's both participants fighting for it too.
Correct.
You have the drivers and the users,
Yeah.
which is
Absolutely.
the most powerful dynamic.
Right. And that's so when you can do that. But it's funny. There's a whole question as to when do you have a product or a service that people will fight for. And sometimes you might have a really good company that's going to be a good investment, but it doesn't sort of excite people in that way. But what we found is FanDuel worked really well. Bird scooters worked really well. Ease, which is cannabis delivery, worked really well. Crypto, that works really well for. So, you have to think about, if you're a founder, you're obviously passionate about it, because otherwise you wouldn't have founded the company in the first place and made all the sacrifices that you've made. But you have to be somewhat objective, saying, okay, do regular people find this thing that I am doing truly critical and fascinating?
You said FanDuel. So are there people out there that will stand up and protest their state government if they try to for banning sports betting?
So we did that. So in 2016, the New York Times published an article effectively accusing employees at FanDuel and DraftKings of conducting a form of insider trading where, according to the Times, they were giving each other information to then put bets on the other's platform. It turned out to actually not be true. But putting that aside, it unleashed this total shitstorm where a couple of dozen states in the course of a few days issued cease and desist orders to us saying you can no longer operate. And we had to all of a sudden go all over America and either pass bills to legalize daily fantasy sports betting, or at least get them to understand that we were complying with the existing laws. And the way that we did that is we went to our customers and said, listen, if you like this product, we need you to fight for it. And every time they were on the app, we knew where they were located, and we'd say, hey, click here to tell your local state senator, state rep, whoever it might be, that you want FanDuel to stick around. And enough people did it that, it shifted the political inputs. If you guys just take a half a step back, in politics, if there's one thing to take away from this interview, it's that every policy output is the result of a political input. Every politician makes every decision solely based on the next election and nothing else. And there are some exceptions. I was Mike Bloomberg's campaign manager, ran for mayor of New York.
Not for the good of the world?
No, not in the slightest, right? Mike Bloomberg, that's so pretty much it. So as a result, that's incredibly depressing, admitted. But it's also kind of a useful place to work from, because then you have to understand what can I do to make said politician feel like doing what I want will either help them win the next election, or if they don't do
So
what
the
I
tech
want,
industry
it could
should tell
cost them.
Ro Khanna, we won't trash you in the next election cycle if you don't put our industry in the dirt.
Yeah, or quite frankly, it's funny, just by, Larry Page and others acting in their own self-interest and already saying, I'm moving to Florida, the billionaires referendum is already on the ropes because of that. So sure, if you think about why, let's say in a place like California, there are unions that just SEIU, the teachers have so much power in Sacramento, it's because they have so much money that they can threaten any given politician and say, if you don't do what we want, we're going to spend $1 million, $5 million, whatever number they want against you in the next election. And everybody backs down because winning the next election is more important to them than any given policy or any given issue. So not every tech startup obviously has the kind of money that a union might have to throw around. So you have to be more creative about it. And that's where your customers can be really useful advocates.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
What's your current outlook on the venture landscape broadly? We've been talking a lot about the K-shaped dynamic. There's a whole bunch of headlines around lower total venture funding, more SPV activity. What are you seeing?
Yeah, a few things. So I kind of have it from both a deal by deal standpoint and then kind of a macro fund model standpoint. So on a deal by deal standpoint, I think we're in this very bifurcated world. So I started investing outside capital in my first fund in 2016. In fact, FanDuel was the first deal I ever did. And at that moment, there was a period of irrational exuberance, right? Everything was incredible and everybody threw tons of money at everything and every startup was going to be, a unicorn or a decacorn or whatever. Then 2021 came, everything fell off the cliff, and all of a sudden things like unit economics and margins and burn and all of that stuff started to matter. And then AI came along, and then so for AI companies, we're back to the 2016 days where people are just having valuations to me that sometimes make no sense whatsoever. I've seen seed companies, with valuations in the hundreds of millions of dollars with no product. Or certainly no revenue. That's crazy. And yet some of the discipline that you saw post 2021 crash is still being applied to non-AI companies. And while I do think that overall, if you had an ETF of private AI startups, it would do well over time, that doesn't mean that any individual valuation is right simply because the letters AI are attached to it in some way. From a fund model standpoint, I really believe that there's effectively only two types of funds that could work if you were to start now. One would be a fund with billions of dollars of AUM, simply because at that point, the management fees are sufficient that the GPs can make a living from that alone. And as long as they can raise the next fund, it doesn't really matter. Or a sub $100 million fund, or even sub 50, you can get away with it, where the hurdle is relatively low. You can get into carry pretty quickly. You're not making much on the management fees, so that's certainly, you've either got to have other resources or really be super scrappy.
If you wanted to start a fund with the lowest chances of success, what would it be? For me, it would be a $200 million Series A only fund.
Sure.
Generalist with nothing differentiating. Even that sub 100 million still only works if you have something truly differentiating, right? So for me, because we're the fund that does the regulatory stuff, for better or worse, we're the people you call if that's your issue. And if you don't have a regulatory
but then
issue,
how do you?
Useless.
What's your framework? Because there's times where I've invested in a company where I'm like, okay, this founding team is fantastic. And they don't understand, but they're good at all this stuff, but they don't understand marketing. I'm very good at marketing. I can invest and I can help. The problem is I'm going to be in the room with them like less than 1% of the time, right? Like I'll do a handful of calls, I'll make intros, I'll help however I can, but I'm not actually on the team. And so I've ended up getting burned because I'm just like, I can't, 1% of my time is not enough to take them from bad at marketing to even good, right?
Right. So for us, the first thing is we ask two simple questions. Is there a gating regulatory issue or opportunity that if it were solved could really drive growth and valuation? And then if so, can we solve it? And that's what led us to invest in companies like FanDuel, Lemonade, Bird, Rogue, Coinbase, Circle, Latch, so on. And then the other part, though, is sort of take Doctronic as an example. We are their GRPR department. We effectively become the in-house group for a company until they get up to a point where it's like, okay, we're now big enough that we probably need an in-house team, in which case, like Roe is a really good example, where when we started working with Roe back at the seed, it's funny with Doctronic because it's prescription via AI. When it was Roe, which was really not that long ago, the question was, is prescription via text legal? Nobody knew, right? Because they had until Z, no one had ever tried to do it before. And he saw something that was incredible. And our job was to legalize this everywhere, and we worked on that and did it. And then eventually they grew to a point where we helped them, put together their kind of in-house people. And then we still talk to them all the time. We jump in on stuff, whether it's GLP-1 compounding rules or when they want to be a COVID test provider or whatever it was. But for those early rounds, we really are part of the team. And that's why we take equity for our work, because, we're lucky to be in a position where I don't need to take cash usually because I have the resources to sort of fund it myself. But, we are there day to day.
Talk to me about mobile voting. We've heard about it for a long time. Do you think it's ever going to happen? What are you doing in the space? Why is it important? Okay, explain.
So, all right, let's start. It's important because in a world of gerrymandering, I'll make the assumption that the viewers know what that is. The only election that matters is the primary. So the New York Times did a study of the 2024 general election. Only 8% of congressional races were decided by 5 points or less, and only 7% of state legislative races were decided by 5 points or less, which means well over 90% of elections are really determined in the primary. And the problem is primary turnout is incredibly low. It's usually about 10%. And so who are those 10%? They're the extremes, the far left or the far right, or there are different special interests, whether it's the NEA or the NRA, either side, that effectively dictate what happens. And if you are a politician and all you want to do is stay in office, then you cater to those groups at the exclusion of everyone else. But because those groups are purists, they don't want compromise. They don't want consensus. They just want to sort of hold true to their principles no matter what the cost is. And so nothing gets done. And the simplest way to solve that is to meaningfully increase primary turnout. But the only way to do that is to meet the voters where they are. Every single one of us has a supercomputer in our pocket. And if you can allow people to vote in at least state and local elections on their phones, you can get primary turnout from 10 to say 40. And now all of a sudden, if in order to get reelected, you have to represent 40% of your constituents instead of 10, that 40% is much more moderate and they want things to get done. So if that means working with the other side to find a reasonable compromise on immigration or guns or healthcare or climate or whatever it is, you can do so. It's not that government doesn't know what the answers are. It's that embracing them imperils re-election, and they won't do that. And so I started something called the Mobile Voting Project in 2017. And the first thing we did was test the hypothesis that I just laid out. And so we funded elections out of my foundation, it's totally philanthropic, in 7 different states where either people with disabilities or deployed military were able to vote in real elections on their phones. And the answer was, of course, as you guys know, when you make something a lot easier and you put it on people's phones, they do it. So that was true. Then the next question became, okay, but is the tech really good enough to do this at scale? It was totally fine for 2,000 soldiers from West Virginia, 3,000 blind people in Oregon, but if we're trying to get every district from 10 to 40, and the tech that was on the market at the time wasn't good enough for that. So we spent 5 years building our own mobile voting technology that is end-to-end encrypted, end-to-end verified, has biometric screening, multi-factor authentication, it's air-gapped, and all of the code is open source, which means it's on GitHub right now. So it's totally transparent, totally auditable. And the next part is then, okay, getting government to say, yes, you can actually do it. So that's about to happen for the first time in April. Anchorage, Alaska is making mobile voting accessible to all of their voters.
Hit the gong. Hit the gong for mobile voting. Overnight.
Thank you. And we are running legislation now in 5 states, Minnesota, Colorado, Vermont, New Jersey, Maryland, that would allow cities in those states to start offering mobile voting as an option for local elections.
Citizens, I can imagine, are super excited about this. who's not excited.
Polls really well.
Yeah, because you're just like, oh no, I love going to the poll. I love taking an hour out of my day to go do this thing that.
So there's the people. There are a few smaller opponents, and then there's in reality the big one. So the smaller ones there are some cryptographers who have said it's impossible, can never be done, something can go wrong. And they're not wrong that something could go wrong, but things go wrong at in-person ballot places all the time. Things go wrong with mail-in voting all the time. And the risk of inaction is where we are today, and this is not sustainable for 20 more years. And there are groups like this one called Verified Voting that are kind of the anti-vaxxers of voting. So they're just like on paper, in person, nothing else, and they're the crazies, just like the anti-vax people, in my view, are a little crazy. But the real opponents at the end of the day are the status quo, because if you are an ideologue or a special interest and primary turnout is 10%, you have a lot of power, because your threats go a long way.
And you look at who's actually turning out for the primaries, and you can concentrate budget on influencing that subgroup, which is much better than having to appeal to an entire region or a huge age range. So
exactly. So that's what we're really going to have to fight through. But if you think about every major right in this country that's ever been won, Women's Right to Vote, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, Same-Sex Marriage, Americans with Disabilities Act, whatever it is, status quo didn't want to do any of those things, right? Enough people stood up loud enough and long enough and demanded their rights, and eventually they won. And it's not easy, and it takes a while, and it's expensive, but that's what we have to do here too, and we're trying.
Amazing.
Really quick, I know we're mostly out of time. What do you think the dialogue will be around AI in the midterm elections?
Negative. I think it's going to be pretty bad.
And is this the kind of thing that certain politicians are going to make their entire brand anti-AI?
So I think what you're going to see, we should see if we can get Kalshi or Polymarket or someone to set a line on this, is the word that will be cited the most in the midterms. By the way, it's not just Congress. There's 36 governors of state, most states legislatures, is affordability, right? So that's the word, right? You heard Trump say it. You heard Mondami here in New York say it. Everyone's going to say it. So then the question is, where does AI fit into the affordability puzzle? And it fits in a couple of ways. One is job loss. I do believe that some of the jobs data that we saw in 2025 reflected layoffs, typically kind of bigger tech companies that are the earliest adopters of AI and new technology, using it, realizing this works pretty well. I don't necessarily need as many people to perform any given function. So you're going to have layoffs. The second is energy prices. So right now, in the way that data centers were conceived by the hyperscalers was, we build these things, and we would consume a lot of energy, and that would be from the grid. And the problem is everyone else who's on that same grid then has to pay the price for that. And so there are a lot of states where AI data centers have already come online where people are paying 30, 40, 50% more in their energy bills every month. The problem is no consumer on either side of the aisle is interested in having to spend more money out of their pocket to help make Sam Altman or Jensen Huang a trillionaire. Right. So
and the
politicians
thing
are starting to push back.
When people were like, I want Uber in my area around where I live. Right. Nobody's like, if I don't get a data center in my backyard, I can't use ChatGPT.
ChatGPT is going to work no matter where the data center is.
It's going to work. And by the way, the data centers don't even create that many jobs, right? So there's not even like you could mobilize that for it. And you see now a bunch of different states on both sides of the aisle start proposing legislation that would find ways to curtail the ability of the data centers to impose those costs and externalities on consumers, whether it's around having to use different types of energy or alternate forms of compute or water or whatever it might be. And so AI is going to get blamed, not wrongly in some ways, for both job loss and higher energy prices, along with things like mental health chatbots having weird problems with teenagers and things like that. And so I think it's going to be a huge attack vessel for challengers against incumbents, in pretty much every election this year. And I think that, when we in the tech world just think everyone loves AI because we love AI, that's not true. And if that is the mindset you take, you're going to lose.
Yeah. No, that makes a ton of sense.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's going to be a really important story to follow this year. We'd love to have you back on the show to talk about it more.
Yeah, let's say anytime. Love talking about this stuff. So anytime it works for you guys, just let me know.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Expect emails in the morning when stories break.
You got to come on.
You got it.
Like, great
I'm a real expert.
And thanks for pushing Jackson over the line.
No,
it's been a pleasure.
Great. He's going to love it. It's gonna be great.
Have a great rest of your day.
All right, guys, thank you.
And Barnes & Noble is opening 60 stores. They're going to
maybe
IPO.
there's a boom.
Somebody sent us.
Yeah, maybe.
So I think just
funny.
don't limit yourself, right?
Yeah.
If make it up with scale, right?
Yes,
Open 50 more stores. You'll make it up with volume.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there we go. I just have to just make it. I need another Uber to be able to afford that. So I'll work on it. So
thank you so much.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Cheers.
Goodbye. Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform that grows with your business and lets you sell in seconds, online, in-store, on mobile, on social, on marketplaces, and now with AI agents. And we have a very special segment on TBPN today. We have Lucas Czinger from Divergent in the Ultradome. He's actually outside the Ultradome. So we're going to take a walk. And we're gonna
do a little walk and talk.
We're gonna do a walk and talk for. I think this is the first time we've ever done this. So I should be able to click over to the lav mic. Do you have the lav mic?
Yeah, I think it's live.
Okay, let's go see what's waiting for us outside of the Ultradome.
We are getting audio from outside already.
I think we have audio outside. Let's go and see. Okay, we're ready. Wow, look at this.
Sure.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yes.
Look at this. Walk us through what we're looking at. Reintroduce yourself for those who might not remember.
I'm Lucas Czinger. I'm the CEO of Divergent and Czinger Vehicles, and you're looking at our first car, the 21C.
Wow, you had to bring it. You had to bring it in green too.
Thank you so much for bringing this.
Match the outfit here
this
for you.
This is actually remarkable. I've watched the full video. I watched Doug DeMuro's review.
Okay.
And seeing it in person, the scale is remarkable. It is a wonder.
It's a spacecraft for the road. It's a land jet. It's
Okay.
a hell of a car to take in traffic from Torrance to here.
Wait, did you drive this on the street here?
Yes.
I was assuming you were in traffic.
Traffic. No, we drove it. We drove it. About an hour in traffic on the way over. So.
I cannot believe you drove it here.
Full carbon.
So
full
tell
carbon
us,
body.
Before we go into the details, tell us the story of your journey with cars. Why did you want to build this car? When did this project start? This doesn't look like it was built in one day, but how long have you been working on this?
This is a 10-year build a company from a vision moment. Okay. So we started as a family business. My father had the vision for Divergent. I joined him soon thereafter. And we have a business that has changed the way that we engineer and manufacture fundamentally. So when we talked last time, we talked about the defense application, the manufacturing application. That company is scaling right now. But Czinger was the first product within Divergent. So when we said we've got new design software, new additive manufacturing technology, new robotics, how are we going to prove this, validate this? We turned to making our own car. Then that evolved into making our own car company. So Czinger Vehicles is about 5 years old.
5 years old.
Within 10 years of what is the Divergent journey. And now it's the world's fastest hypercar. It's American made. It's got 5+ international track records. And it's road legal. And most excitingly, there's over 16 of these in the wild now. So they've been delivered Los Angeles, Miami, London, all the usual suspects.
This is remarkable.
And this car, it represents fully that 10-year journey.
Yeah, I mean, Jordy was just making the joke with me today that you could build the ultimate American-made hypercar garage for remarkably cheap. Compared to an Italian hypercar collection or even a British hypercar. You've just raised the stakes significantly with this, I think. This is remarkable. So what has the testing been like? You said 5 records. Who's driving these cars? What tracks? What are the records that you're going for? What has stood out in the journey?
So Joel Miller has been our test pilot, and he's an exceptional driver, factory driver for Ferrari, great coach, and we nailed 5 track records in 5 days, which has never been done before.
That's amazing.
We made a documentary of it, and it was all about the street usability of the car and the performance envelope it has. So instead of showing up to a
5 in 5 days,
Yes.
what does that actually look like? You're getting a record, immediately packing it in a trailer, driving to the next track? Or
Driving.
Driving it to
driving
the
no
next
trailer.
track?
So that was the epic journey, and we made a documentary called it California Gold Rush.
Okay.
And we drove from NorCal through SoCal, and we hit every track on the way. And every day we'd set the track record.
Okay.
Every night we'd get in the car and we'd drive a couple hundred miles to the next track, get in late, get some sleep, get up early the next morning and do another record. So it was as much of a human feat as a vehicle feat, but what it was meant to show was these hypercars can be driven on the road. This one can. It was built as a road car, not only a track car. And it's got so much performance that quite literally you can show up at the track on used tires and set a track record and not need a pro team next to you supporting you.
It's amazing. Talk about the decisions in usability. I see 3 pedals in there. Between the Carrera GT, super raw, no supports, extremely dangerous, to some of the more point and shoot. Where did you want to land? Where did this car land?
So ultimately, this was about creating a road car that was otherworldly in the way that it drove on the street, but could beat the best on the track. And that's a hell of a design brief, because usually those two worlds don't marry well together. We also wanted to create a vehicle that was engaging as part of that otherworldly experience, right? You wanted something that wasn't numb at low speed, that was very, very lively on the road, but ultimately could shave 10 seconds off the thermal track record when you go 10 out of 10.
This has been
right?
the thermal.
Thermal,
No
yeah.
way.
10
10
seconds off the track record at thermal.
Do you know who had the previous record?
I won't say.
Okay.
Yeah, that's too big of a margin to say. But we've had an epic back and forth.
Because I've been in a Valkyrie at thermal with our friend. Who I won't name them because he's
that's a great
somewhat
car
private,
as well.
But
this car,
but I was in the Valkyrie at thermal. Almost every single corner, I thought that I was going to die.
So 10 seconds faster than that.
10 seconds faster than that is insane.
Sounds brutal.
Yeah, you're pulling major G's, the cornering, the acceleration. But back to your question, this car marries those two worlds, track driving with road driving. It's a one design brief. You got the center seating. That's, of course, intentional. That's based on the Aero package. That allows for less frontal surface area. It also gets you centered in the car, which is the best track driving position you can have, right? Your lefts feel the same as your rights.
I've always wondered why more manufacturers don't go with the center seating. I mean, it's iconic from the McLaren F1. And then maybe it's just a practicality thing.
The back seat, right? It looks a little tight in there. Your feet go outside of the front seat, so you actually have much more room than you think. You don't need to get your knees up behind that front seat. And when you're in there, you're packaged pilot, co-pilot. And it's a really dynamic driving experience. I mean, our customers that drive with their partners, they actually love the layout. And in terms of hybrid, strong hybrid, ground up developed in the US as well. So we've got a V8 that we took all the way through California CARB to road homologate. It's about 750 horsepower, twin turbo, 2.88 liter. We have another spec that takes that up to 850, and then you get another 500 horsepower out of the front wheel. So you're doing 1250 to 1350 total horsepower, all-wheel drive, 7-speed AMT, automatic manual transmission, but you have that EV fill on the front axle. You've got the middle EV motor, the MGU, so you have a really, really seamless gear shifting experience. Feels much more like a DCT than a single clutch, but you get the weight of a single clutch package.
How early did the door design come together? It's it's pretty striking. I mean, people have done scissor doors, butterfly doors, all sorts of things, but there's something about how long these doors are that really stands out.
Yeah, it had the record for the world's longest door for some time, and that's because, of course, you're opening the front and the rear at the same time. And you've got this 45-degree angle. It looks like wings coming up. It's part of the design brief, part of the functionality brief. We didn't want to split the passenger side into a separate door from a styling perspective. And then
can I get in the cockpit for a second?
Yeah. Let me show you how to do that real quick. Maybe spin around this side.
Let's do it.
It's a two-stepper. So you're going to take a seat right here. So this is the battery box, and then swing your legs in.
Yeah, you don't want me to put my feet right on that exposed carbon.
Okay. Turn it on.
Swing the feet. You got it. Nice.
Here we go.
Yeah, when you're in there, because you got the center seat, you actually have a lot of room. I mean, compared to the Valkyrie where you're pretty squished, and you're also at an angle, This actually has a lot of
Even
headroom.
when you have a helmet on in a Valkyrie, you hardly have any room, is it?
You're probably touching a tiny bit. And that seat's almost all the way forward. You got seat controls on your left.
What is the name
in there
21C? What is
so stands for 21st century.
Okay.
So Divergent's mission statement is build the 21st century industrial base.
Sure.
So this car represents the 21st century in the vehicle space.
Yeah.
Can I pull this down for a
Yes.
second? I want to see.
Wow. How important are the materials? I mean, I imagine.
Put your foot on the brake.
I see.
Do we have a key in here? Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, baby.
I'll see you guys later.
See you later. Wow.
Yeah, so you get a feel for it. You've got your different modes. You've got an EV only mode, you've got a track mode, you've got a sport mode. And you're pulling gears on the steering wheel there. You've got all your controls on the wheel, centralized. Cool features, you got some 3D printed AC vents even.
Yeah.
You've got your 3D printed speaker grills. You've got the wheel, the center node. And it's a full carbon body, but the full chassis then is printed underneath. Yeah,
Can
lock
you do
them
it?
in there.
There you go. There you go. Wow.
Wow, it's
Look
such
at
a
that.
different, it's such a different experience. Actually, feeling
It
like
fits
you're in
you.
a cockpit here. Insane.
In the green.
Yeah.
Man, the urge to just throw it in reverse.
Yeah, we should go for a drive. It's America's
maybe
hypercar.
after the show. Insane.
Yeah. How important are the materials? I imagine this door, if you made it out of steel, it'd be incredibly heavy. You couldn't lift it. What are you using as building materials, and how important is that?
So the entire chassis architecture is what really differentiates the car as well. So when you look at it from an optimized system, we didn't just optimize rear frame, then front frame. We actually built a full vehicle model with our topology software.
Okay.
And what we're building on the chassis is additively manufactured aluminums, which are actually our own chemistries.
Okay.
So they have the right strength and durability, but also for auto elongation to absorb energy.
Okay.
So if you get in a rear impact, you need to have a material that doesn't shear or break.
Okay, that makes sense.
And that's really, really hard to get in an additive material.
Sure,
So we had to actually make that aluminum in-house.
Yeah.
The body then is fully carbon fiber.
Okay.
So you're marrying essentially 3D printed aluminums and Inconels with a carbon fiber exterior for aero. You're taking all of your load cases, your main large forces, through that additively manufactured chassis, and then all your aero load through the carbon body.
And then what pieces of the cars? I mean, Michelin tires. You don't make the tires.
Yes.
What else is in the supply chain where you're buying instead of building?
Yeah, we have great partners in the supply chain, right? We can't build every piece of this, so you named it: tires, infotainment system.
Oh, sure.
Right, we've got Apple CarPlay
Of course,
on there.
you don't
That's
want to
the
write your own
standard.
software necessarily.
We have a partnership on our transmission where we actually did part of the design. We additively manufacture the housing, but then someone else cuts the gears for us and integrates it.
Okay.
On the engine side, we designed that V8 ground up, and we actually build that V8 as well.
John, did you get a look back
Yeah,
here?
let's go look at it right now.
On the battery side, we've got a partnership there. So almost every system on this car is bespoke, either fully engineered and manufactured by Czinger and Divergent, or done in a JV where we have a partner where we've taken a design brief to them, said this has never been done before, will you sign up to do it with us?
And then this sort of structure, it looks very organic. Where did that come from? Whose idea was that? Is that someone in CAD? Is there AI involved?
So that's the computer's idea.
Okay, interesting.
That's not the designer's idea. So when we talk about divergent process, design, print, assemble, the design portion is a fully integrated set of microservices that takes requirements and turns it into optimal CAD.
Okay, so you're setting parameters. You want the lightest weight for the most strength with this performance in this volume, because it can't be bigger.
Yes.
And then it will go and try all sorts of things.
Yes.
And then you can finally use additive manufacturing to manufacture the part.
You got it. So 10 years ago, we started in machine learning, the basis of modern AI, right? And AI-based algorithms and prediction to do a weighted optimization function for designing these parts. Importantly, we simulate the full manufacturing side as well. So once we've designed, say, this rear cross brace, and that wing is going to interface directly onto that point. So that entire
just clicks right in,
rear
basically. Yeah.
cross brace is going to take the aero load of 5,000 plus pounds onto it.
Interesting.
So you're so you're going to give it that force vector, that down force.
Oh, and it just loads, and then that just fuses across the whole.
So then you also give the software the crash impulse case, the durability case, the load cases coming off the road, the vehicle, the tires, all into that functional system. The software actually then says add and subtract material against those requirements until we hit a Pareto optimal point.
Makes sense.
That means it's the lightest weight while meeting those requirements. And then the beauty is it's already simulated for manufacturing. So there's no design for manufacturing loop. We go through our MES, homegrown, and actually make that part and then assemble it with our robotic cell.
So this is chassis 28 of 80.
Yes.
So you said there's 16 that are out in the wild already.
Yes.
So you have 12 or something that are maybe ready to go. Is that right?
Yes. So there's cars in between. This one's also a special number for us. Sometimes people request the exact number on a vehicle, but we're typically around 20 cars a year.
These are the records that this car has set specifically?
Yeah. So this is Laguna Seca and Circuit of the Americas, which are two of the main American iconic tracks, right? This is probably our best track in California. The beauty about this one is it's outdated. So we just had an epic back and forth with Koenigsegg, the Swedish hypercar maker, and we set a 122.3. So we beat our previous record by over 2 seconds, beat their record by almost 2 seconds, and put a whole new benchmark for Laguna.
I love that you have a rivalry with Christian von Koenigsegg, but just settle it on the track. It's just a beautiful, I don't know, it's industrialists for hundreds of years in America have been building the fastest train, the fastest plane, now the fastest car.
Is there any ambition to one day make cars for everyday consumers, or is it racing and
so
hypercars?
Czinger will stay at the tip of the spear. It's all about big R&D budgets, making a car that is a next step forward in terms of consumer experience, and therefore it's got to be expensive. It just has to be. It's like it's the most modern high performance niche that does develop systems that then do make their way into more mainstream vehicles, but Divergent is the company that's going to do the Ford F-150 one day on the chassis technology side.
With partners.
Exactly. So that tier one supply, the volume game of doing millions of vehicles, that'll come through Divergent. The tip of the spear, highest performing vehicles in the world, that'll come through Czinger.
That's amazing. Very cool. Anything else we should know about the car? Should we go sit down inside, talk about business and how things are going?
Let's talk about business a bit.
I
think next step for you all is to
this view
to
right
drive
here, Michael. You got to get this view, this shot from this angle, is just absolutely insane.
What a beast!
Stunning.
Absolute beast.
Yeah, that's real functional era.
Yeah,
that's
the scale of the car is just is.
It's wide.
It's just everything. It's wide, long, tall.
Yeah, that front splitter. Yeah, you can put a lot of weight on that.
It has such a presence.
Give you a quick shot here.
There we go.
Whoa.
Yeah.
There we go.
It's actually functional.
It's got to.
Insane.
Okay. Let's go sit down. We'll chat and dig in more. We are back in the Ultra Dome. We'll have you sit right here, and
we're back.
It's fascinating. I mean, I think we hang out long enough. Jordy's eventually going to browbeat you into doing the McLaren track and eventually making road cars or something, or just like
it's fully road legal.
How difficult is that process?
Oh, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Because we went through, this is not an EV car. It's a strong hybrid, so it has an EV system, but a combustion engine as well.
Yeah.
And we went through full California CARB emissions compliance on that V8. Just heard it start up, right? And that is a difficult process because they're looking at, while the car's running, when the car first starts, what the evaporation is of fuel or oil in a what they call shed test as well. So there's a huge amount of requirements to actually certify that car. I think the amount of fuel you actually burn in the certification process might not actually make it logical for cars that are this low volume.
Oh, interesting.
But you go through that and you show that this car is actually designed to be environmentally friendly with that V8.
What would you do if you're making a track-only version?
We would strip out a lot of weight and a lot of the safety monitoring software and systems. So first off, you're talking about all your airbags go, all your passive safety environment goes, a lot of electronics that are there for redundancy.
Do you have any that have like a full
diagnostics.
roll cage in them, or was the intention just like, hey, we want to set
road car
records with?
Yeah. So road car, right? Maybe in the future we'd make a track only car. It would be different, almost entirely. That roof design, the carbon A-pillars that run all the way across, that is rated for a rollover cage. So you can roll that vehicle and have similar performance to a rollover cage, but integrated there. You don't want a roll cage in a road vehicle because it's a very hard surface in the car. And if you're not harnessed in, you're going to move more and you're going to hit your head against it if you get in a crash.
Oh, sure.
So the roll cage on the track where you have the harness on and the helmet makes sense, but the roll cage without the harness and no helmet, it actually is a major hazard on the road.
Yeah, talk more about the safety approval, getting the car road legal. Is there a hurry up and wait element while you're in the queue? There are other cars and there's a rate limiting factor there? Or is it more a quick back and forth, but you're making dozens of changes constantly? What's the actual process like?
So it is an iterative process. It is known to be a real headache for certain OEMs in terms of the timing and attention that they get and how quickly they can iterate.
And I'm sure if you're like Ford and you're like, there's a new Corolla coming, or that's Toyota, but there's a new, there's a new F-150 coming every year with a refresh, and we're changing this. They have a whole system set up. It's not as bespoke, so they must have a whole team for it. You sort of have to build that out.
To California Carb's credit, I think they saw that this was one of the first new OEMs in America, period. And there was a narrative that they wanted to support there as well, and we managed to get their attention, and our team was able to work with them effectively. So I don't know.
How much are you using this as part of the sales process when you're pitching, let's say, other OEMs to make parts with you guys? Are you saying like, hey, if you don't believe me, get in the, let's like go for it?
Early on, it was like the proof is in the pudding moment, right? You come to our factory, you see our car, you can drive it. If you're Bugatti or McLaren or Aston Martin, you see that, and that's a huge benefit, right? So we use that a lot early on in the company as a sales tool. Now in defense, we're hosting anyone from Secretary Hegseth to a CEO of a prime. When they see a company that can integrate a road legal vehicle and they see that manufacturing process, it just builds a lot of confidence, right? There's a cool narrative. Hegseth loved revving that in car but there's also a capability narrative, and that systems engineering is proven out through that car.
How? I mean, I was looking at your careers website. You're hiring tons of people. How scaled is the manufacturing plant? How large is the team? How large is the business? How are you growing these years?
So we've gone in the last 3 years from not being a defense-focused business and Divergent to being a defense-focused business. We're dual use, dual tech. So we do have our commercial arm. The auto business is growing. Our supply to really the European luxury brands is growing. But the focus is on defense right now. 3 years ago, we had 0 contracts. Today, we're on over 40 active contracts. And that's what's really unique about Divergent is we're not competing head-to-head with Anduril and Lockheed and Raytheon. Rather, we're servicing all of the primes. So you can build this horizontal manufacturing layer as a service to all of them. You can bet not on 1 to 5 programs of record, but rather service 100 programs of record over time and be that manufacturing supplier for them. We've gone through that journey of first refactoring the company to work on defense, winning our first contracts, delivering our first prototypes, flying those, proving the performance of a new technology, and then actually in the last 6 months, winning our first scaled production programs. Now, if you come to the facility, you'll see exit rates at around 100 a month of main bodies for large cruise missile systems. So 80 a month or 100 a month. It's not high volume for auto, but for our defense landscape, making 1,000 missiles per year, that's on the high volume side of things. That's what Divergent's factory in Torrance is already churning out. Now we've almost gotten to full capacity on our Torrance facility with those contracts. So we're starting to look at factory 2, 3, 4, 5. We got multiple states that we're, kind of shopping and partnering with right now, and then also looking at California because it makes sense for especially the startup community here, which are great partners for us to have another manufacturing platform here.
What about other applications outside of defense and automotive? maritime comes to mind. I can imagine a lot of that additive manufacturing technology being useful on high-speed boats, yachts, I don't know, aviation, planes. We were talking about Harrison Ford crashing Cessnas all day long. Maybe you need some more reliable manufacturing. But what other areas have you at least thought about expansion into?
Yeah, the TAM for this system is so large, and that's a blessing, but you need to be disciplined in what you address first and second and third. Right now, it's a primary focus on defense. Within that, looking at largely munition systems, and then looking at torpedoes and similar structures, but on the Navy application side. Outside of defense, we look to space. So we're doing quite a bit of work in space. Optimization, mass saving there really matters. So you think about things like satellite buses. As we get more and more launch vehicles and they're carrying different payloads into space, what is the structure that essentially attaches those to the launch vehicle? We've got several programs ongoing there. And then you look out at Divergent over 10 years. Really any metal structure that takes a complex load path, so has some sort of force that it's interacting with, should be designed by the platform and manufactured by it. So you think commercial air, you think oil and gas, you think mining vehicles, you even think over time as the prices come down enough, construction and where can it get into almost the city planning side of the equation as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Wild.
What are you seeing on the hypersonic side? I know a lot of it's under wraps, but we've talked to Castellian and some other folks that are thinking about this, and just broadly, the defense industry has been talking about the hypersonic gap over the cruise missile. Are you excited about that? Are you following that story at all?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, we're working on multiple hypersonic programs right now, designing primary structure for these vehicles. You know, in terms of narrative or when I zoom out a notch, you need both. You need the affordable cruise missile, that's $200,000 instead of $3 million. And you also need the hypersonics capability across different classes of hypersonics. And for us, what do we need to be good at? At Divergent, we need to be great with our material science. So we need the right nickel-based alloys that can get very hot and still perform. So that's different than the aluminums that you saw mostly on the car. We've designed several of those materials. We have commercially available ones. We've got ones that the government has actually contracted us to do a special materials development for a higher performing version of what's commercially available today. And then we need to be able to print these at scale. A company like Castellian is really not only about hypersonics, but hypersonics at scale. Right? They want to make a lot of these. They're down the road from us. We want to help them make a lot of them.
That's cool. Talk about what's unique about additive manufacturing in aluminum, nickel. I think most people will be familiar with like 3D printed plastics, but is it similar to just soldering lines of solder and just building up slowly? Like what else is going on?
It's the most advanced way to make a metal part, and it's the most controllable way as well. It's not really related to, in terms of technology, 3D printing of plastics. Right? Maybe the narratives are tied a bit together.
Yeah, it's not
but
like
in terms
molten
of tech,
push through a nozzle like a.
We do something called powder bed fusion. So we have a powdered aluminum or Inconel in a build chamber. That build chamber has no oxygen in it. It's got nitrogen instead, so it's non-reactive in there. And then you've got high-power lasers overhead. And those high-power lasers essentially melt, laser weld, one layer of that part at a time. You put a new layer of powder on top, and you laser melt that layer to the layer below. So if you think about a part, think about it standing vertical, and think about it as a layer cake, maybe 5,000 layers. And you're laser welding with those lasers every single layer, layer by layer, and you're getting full data at every single layer. So maybe that one section of a defense product is 7,000 layers. I get 7,000 layers of information on that build. Right? So this is the most controllable process in terms of in-process monitoring. It's the most advanced way to make a metal part, and you also end up being able to make exactly the net shape you want. Because when you have a cross-section, you can do the exterior and the interior, and you have full control of that geometry. You vacuum away your unused powder, you end up with your net shape. So in terms of waste and efficiency of the process, you can get something that runs at a higher OEE when we talk about manufacturing efficiency. And you can get something that actually performs better. So when we talk, application focus, if you're a missile system, we typically are seeing about 30% lighter structures while hitting the requirements. And more importantly, we're able to functionally integrate that structure with the fuel tank, with the avionics mounting, with that whole complex system. We're usually increasing fuel volume by about 30 to 40%.
Okay.
So if you're a missile and you get 30, 40% more fuel volume, that's a real game changer. Yep. And that's what the customer looks at Divergent to do is, one, get the best engineered product, and that's going to change in a positive way the performance of your vehicle. And then two, scale the manufacturing. And that second part is where, in the modern age of defense, where we are looking for volume, is where there's a big gap right now. And that is part of the reason why Divergent has gotten, one, so much business, but two, so much attention as well, is it's starting to be viewed as that manufacturing layer, right? Our mission statement 10 years ago, build a 21st century industrial base, is actually starting to happen now.
That's amazing. Last question from me. The pieces that seemed clearly made in your factory with additive manufacturing, they looked white. They didn't look like metal. Have they been coated? What's the post-processing once you make a product?
Yeah, so our as-printed aluminum comes out almost like a silvery white color.
Okay.
So what you're seeing is probably some of that.
Okay.
But we do coatings.
Okay.
And especially on the defense side, we have a fully automated anodize line.
Okay.
So it's essentially a process where you clean the part, dip the part, and then one of those stations, one of those tanks is actually electronically charged. So when you're anodizing, you're essentially plating that part with a certain coating.
Yeah.
That makes it more corrosive or more
Corrosion
resistant to corrosion.
Got it, okay.
For Navy applications.
Right. Yeah, water,
but also,
moisture.
depending on the system, once it's fully integrated, if it's a stealth system, there might be a special paint that goes over top. There might be a gap and flush process over it. And Divergent will either do that or partner with the prime to do it.
At least prep the material so that it can go get the special paint that might be classified or something.
Exactly.
You're handing out.
Last question from my side. Want to understand how local kind of politicians and how, like, what's your relationship like? How does Torrance think about kind of neo primes and overall building up the manufacturing base in Torrance?
Yeah, we've had a strong relationship with the city, which is part of the reason we've been able to get fast permits for our factory. You can think about something like automated anodize. That's usually something that can take some years to stand up. We've been able to build relationships that allowed that to accelerate. Are there states that are lower cost and probably even faster for permitting and manufacturing? Absolutely. In terms of engineering headquarters, Los Angeles or the greater Southern California area is very special because we have the environment to create hardware and test hardware, and we've got some of the brightest people in the world all centralized, and now we have a VC community and general, I'd say, growth funding community that is focused in this area as well. So Divergent will stay headquartered here. We will go through some serious scale production here as well, but over time you're going to see factories across all the states in the US, and some of those factories will be at a lower cost basis than the ones here.
Yeah. Very cool.
It's so awesome. I love it. Just everything about this company is so fun. Congratulations on all the progress. And seriously, thank you for bringing the car. What a treat. What a special moment.
We've been wanting to do a TBPN track day.
Yeah.
You'll be one of the first to know when a date is set. You got to bring it out.
Yeah, you can come out and smoke us all. Absolutely do laps around us. But thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. This was an absolute pleasure.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'm sure we'll be talking much more over this year as you roll out everything.
Good to see you both.
So great. We will talk to you soon.
Yeah, good to see
you.
you.
Have a good rest of your day.
Enjoy the drive.
And I will tell you about Graphite, code review for the age of AI. Graphite helps teams on GitHub ship higher quality software faster. And we have our Lambda lightning round starting in just a few minutes. We have Andy McCune from Cosmos coming on first, then FabFitFun, the co-founder and CEO of that company, has launched a venture fund. He's coming on. And Aaron Katz, the co-founder and CEO of ClickHouse, is coming on. And it sounds like we have Andy in the Restream waiting room. So let's kick off our Lambda lightning round and let him in to the TBPN Ultra Dome.
What's going on?
How are you doing?
What's up, guys? How
Good
are
to
you?
see you. Welcome to the show.
Too.
First time on the show.
Thank you
so
for wearing
please,
green too.
Yes,
it's a great sign of respect.
We love green.
This is my Cosmo racing jacket in honor of you guys.
It's amazing.
Yeah, we just had a green hypercar.
Yeah.
We were doing a quick tour of.
Anyway, first time on the show. Please kick us off with an introduction on yourself and the company.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Andy McCune. We're based here in New York.
Cool.
20-person team, building the new home for inspiration on the internet. Visual search engine. Just announced our Series A today. Super exciting. $15 million round.
Did it.
And much new features.
Sliding around.
Amazing.
Got me
Okay.
fired up. Congratulations.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about right
Yes.
now, and it's such an interesting time to be building this company because there's just like an explosion of content. You can get a pretty picture now. You don't need a camera.
Yeah.
Anybody can generate one from their own home. Why don't maybe we start and you can give us kind of the history of the company, what the initial
Maybe even go
inspiration was.
back further about the previous company you worked on?
Yeah, for sure. In 2017, I founded a company called Unfold. So we are like a mobile content creation tool, kind of Canva adjacent. Ended up selling that company to Squarespace, did a few years there, leading creator product strategy, and have been working on Cosmos for the last 4 years or so now. I'm a really creative person, always working on a lot of different creative projects, and I very much grew up on Tumblr back in the day, and ever since then I've been an obsessive collector and curator of things on the internet. Always just saving things to a million folders on my desktop and folders on my phone, things just in all of my different bookmarking folders on different platforms. And so Cosmos just started out as me wanting to build a place where I could bring all of these references into one home, where everything would be tagged by AI, so I could quickly search and resurface anything that I had saved. I wanted to be able to work with collaborators in these different projects. Just started out as building a side project for myself, as everything I ever built has kind of started out as. Started getting into the hands of my most creative friends, and people were like, this is awesome.
And so were those friends the ones that were uploading the original content? Were you scraping the internet to bring on the first and like seed the community? Like where was the actual content coming from?
Yeah, we weren't scraping anything. It's always come from the users.
Okay.
We have great importing tools, and people can upload links from a lot of different platforms and around around the internet. All of the content is seeded by the community, which has grown in a really, really beautiful way. We have tens of millions of images on platform now, an amazing global search, all of the recommendation layer that you would expect from a product like this.
And what were the early adopters looking for? Is it more like, because when I think about image search, I think about people that are doing home renovations, but also designers that are looking for inspiration for clothing or web design. There's some people that just sit there and scroll just to enjoy their favorite images like you enjoy your favorite books. What were the early drivers of growth?
Yeah, I think, we amassed a wait list of a few 100,000 folks before we launched the product. And I think if you look at the cohorts of users that were coming in really early, it was, designers across every discipline. We're talking interior designers, architects, graphic designers, brand designers, photographers, folks like this, which really helped seed such an amazing, original corpus of content. But really where we're seeing a lot of the growth come from now is sort of this, Gen Z wave. I call them kind of the next generation of Tumblr kid.
Sure.
They love to mood board for fun. Maybe they're not saving typographical references on a day-to-day basis because, they need it for their client work, but maybe they're just dreaming up a version of themselves that they aspire to be.
Cool.
And they want to surround themselves with beautiful things.
Yeah. And then how have you been grappling with the AI generation, image generation boom? You started the company 4 years ago. It's pretty much pre-AI content, essentially. Yeah. Now it's indistinguishable. What's the journey been like for you?
And there's so much pressure on each platform to take a stance. Right now, when you look at most of the platforms, the stance is like AI content is welcome here.
Some of it gets tagged.
Yeah, we may try to tag it.
Yeah.
But it's being harder and harder.
But for a lot of platforms, you just have to search, okay, I only want to see images before 2022. and it's like almost like an archive that can be really good. But yeah, just how have you been processing it?
Yeah, for sure. I think that, we're definitely seeing a lot of backlash within the ecosystem against a lot of other platforms where AI-generated content is kind of proliferating all of the feeds, and people are engaging with stuff that they don't even know is AI-generated content. And maybe they search the thing and then they click into it and they see that it's labeled by AI, and they find that really frustrating.
Yeah.
And we're definitely growing a lot of users now that we kind of consider like refugees from this. We really want to be a platform that champions human creativity and human created content. Now, that's not to say that we're drawing a hard stance against AI generated content, but I think that it's really important that people are able to decide what they want to see. And so we've done, what some of these other platforms have done as well, is every image that gets uploaded on platform, we're running it through multiple different algorithms to detect if that is AI generated. And so every user has settings within their profile where they can choose to show or hide AI generated content.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then
how confident are you that you're catching all of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's an uphill battle, right? I mean, it keeps getting better. You have to keep retraining the models. And it's only going to get more difficult. So, I think that it's only a matter of time before it's, pretty difficult to
There's also some AI image models I've noticed where I will upload an image, ask it to do something, and it kind of just spits out the exact same image, or maybe it just like adds a piece of text, and it feels like it didn't actually run a new diffusion model. It just sort of used some tool to like layer over text, and it's like, well, it's kind of just acting as an agentic Photoshop at that point. It's not really creating an AI image, like all of the details and fingers are the same because it's literally the same pixels that it's just using. And so to that count, it's going to be all hairy. I'm interested to know how you think about For You pages, algorithmic feeds versus search and being more of a search engine. Is that line blurring? What are the important trade-offs? What do you like and dislike about algorithm design?
Yeah, for sure. So we have a For You page on Cosmos that learns your taste and learns your interests as you say things. I think it's important that you have something like that so people have a new vector that they can discover content through. What's really interesting is the search problem is actually very similar to the For You problem, especially when you get into the world of serving people personalized search. Right, so you train your For You, we have an idea of what your tastes and your aesthetic leanings are. And then when you search something, you're actually just adding that keyword over sort of this vectorized database of, visual aesthetic that you've already identified with. So the problems are actually very related and intertwined. I think one thing that we've done that's really interesting is we've started developing in-house aesthetic prediction models. So we've actually been using all of our own data, user user uploaded content, and we've been training models that understand kind of like what good versus bad looks like. And we're using these aesthetic predictions to loosely re-rank our search results in our For You pages to try to keep the slop off of the platform. We believe
the slop wars.
Yeah, you deep in the slop wars. Frontline soldier here in the foxhole. I salute your service.
I think we believe that your outputs are a reflection of your inputs, and so it's like very philosophically important that we're feeding people high quality inputs because so many creative projects start with the mood boarding phase, and so if the inputs are going to become the output, it's really important that we're giving people a place where they can find the highest quality things.
What's been the growth loop for you? What's been the key to growth? I know that you've been, featured by Apple as one of the top 25 apps for 2025. You're 500,000 followers on Instagram. But is there a traditional referral flow? What are you using from the Web 2.0 boom era versus viral social playbook? What's been the big growth engine? Have you had to just run ads? What's worked?
Yeah, we haven't been running ads. I mean, it's really been organic up until this point.
Yeah.
We had an early invite friend flow, which was pretty successful for us. I think that's not as successful as it was a few years ago when we ran it. But I think the nature of Cosmos is really collaborative. You start what we call a cluster, is like a collection. You start a cluster. You start inviting your collaborators to those. The experience gets so much more valuable, and we're seeing really high density as well within some of the best creative teams in the world. I mean, we have hundreds of users on platform on Nike.com emails. We have teams at Chanel using Cosmos, teams at Apple using Cosmos. So that density within creative teams has been really, really powerful for us.
And then monetization, I feel like you're going to be anti-ad just because as soon as you have an ad, it's hard to influence. You can't say you can only serve pretty ads.
For $50,000, you can post the sloppiest AI slop with 6 fingers, but we're going to charge you a pretty penny. No, I want to know the real monetization strategy.
Yeah, for sure. So we're not monetizing yet. I mean, we have a premium subscription right now, but it's pretty demoted within the product.
Sure.
I think there will be a lot that we have yet to reveal. But I think that where we're going is going deeper on sort of focusing on those creative teams that are using Cosmos and how can we better serve those folks. And then we're also starting to build into commerce as well. So we launched a commerce pilot last year. And you can imagine we're running hundreds of thousands of searches a day right now on the platform. And if someone searches for brown leather couch, they're probably looking to buy a brown leather couch.
That makes
and so how can we how can we create a compelling commerce experience that doesn't feel like we're trying to force products down your throat, but it's really commerce through inspiration.
Yeah. It's like
cool.
aesthetic first, taste first, as opposed to like feature set, price, like all the filters that you see when you're on Google Shopping. It's those are probably going to be way lower in the funnel than the aesthetic that you're
shoppable mood board. You can think of people doing inspiration for interior design, their wardrobe, all this stuff. It's like that's a high intent moment when somebody's trying to.
Can you explain a little bit more about the aesthetic trends that are popular? I've seen these different like phrases used to describe how certain people describe their whole aesthetic. Like what is how would you describe the communities that have formed around these like modern sub niche aesthetics?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I mean, we launched a new feature today. So we gave the profile a really big refresh. Historically, everything that you saved had to go within a cluster.
Okay.
The release that we put out today gives you a core feed of images that sit at the forefront of the profile, which is really akin to like your Tumblr blog back in the day. It's really like a snapshot of your taste and what you're into. We're starting to go really deep on the datas and the trends that we're seeing on the platform between what people are searching, what clusters are they creating, all of those sorts of things. And we're going to start putting out trend reports, which we're really excited for. And we've started sort of seeding these into our newsletter, which has been really, really fun.
That's great.
That's cool.
But yeah, it's been really cool to see these different sort of niche aesthetics blossom. I think historically, a lot of the usage has been just around, again, the core use cases that we were talking about, on like graphic design, interior design, whatever. But if you think about something like Tumblr, right, there was like fandoms that were popping off and, like emo aesthetics and culture, right? So we're starting to see some of these pop up, but it's a little early to tell. But we're really excited to start publishing these more publicly.
Okay, last question for your personal aesthetic. The Pantone color of the year for 2026 is Cloud Dancer. It's a soft, lofty white that symbolizes calm, peace, and fresh starts. Underrated or overrated?
I'm a neutral palette guy, but I know it was really contentious within the creative community. I think we could have gone a little bit more creative with it, but I'm never going to hate on a neutral palette.
Okay,
this is pretty out of pocket for me.
Okay, so it sounds like Cloud Dancer might be working its way into your.
It's a good name.
Your Cosmos.
Spooky in the X chat says, "How do you avoid creating an automatic house aesthetic if you're algorithmically filtering slop?" Any thoughts there? Like, is part of this like it is so
like a lot of
generated that somebody might have you're not trying to like have an overarching aesthetic other than like somebody could come on and create a bunch of clusters for an aesthetic that is not aligned with your personal taste or the taste of Cosmos.
The ArtStation look became the Midjourney look, and then now that just looks like the AI art look, but what if you're actually just into like, matte painting? Like what you're going to get filtered maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like the point of the aesthetic prediction model is less to peddle what we think is good and is more to set a bottom bound on what we think is bad. And so that bar is set pretty low. But it's a great question. We're continuing to retrain the aesthetic models that we have. And we're kind of going through this right now where we're trying to widen the aperture of that to service more folks and to reach a broader audience. So I don't think there's a clean answer to it other than just continuing to iterate on your models and pass them into production and measure and learn from there.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come hop on the show. Great to meet you and good luck.
Yeah,
congratulations.
Great to see you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.
Goodbye. The New York Stock Exchange. Want to change the world? Raise capital at the New York Stock Exchange. And with that, we will. You can hear. I hope you can hear it.
I don't know if it's coming through.
The 21C is fired up. That V8 is roaring. And we have Michael from FabFitFun and Deep33 in the Restream waiting room. We'll bring him into the TBPN Ultra Dome. How are you doing?
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, doing great. Good to be here.
Thanks so much for hopping on. Give us the news.
Look at this
I want to
jacket.
ring
First
the
of all,
gong.
this jacket is fantastic.
You have news for us.
I mean, you guys always dress to impress, and I didn't want to let you down. So
incredible.
Thank you. You raised some money. How much did you raise?
We've got a $150 million fund. We've closed. There we go.
Let's go.
$150 million fund. What sub-markets are you most interested in? What strategy? What stages? How are you thinking about focusing your investing work over the fund lifecycle?
Yeah, so we are a deep tech fund focused on the U.S.-Israel corridor. So we'll be investing across U.S. and Israel. And so, what's unique, especially about the kind of the Israel ecosystem focus, is there isn't a deep tech fund, let's say in the mold of an Eclipse, a Deep Sea VC, a Lux Capital, focus on that ecosystem. And we just think there's enormous opportunities.
What are the great recruiting hubs for entrepreneurs in defense in Israel? We've heard about Talpio and a few other groups. Where are you finding talent? Are they, ex founders themselves, repeat founders? Where are you sourcing deals from?
So interestingly, actually, the former commander of Talpiot is actually one of my partners in the fund.
No way.
There you go.
For those of you who aren't familiar with Talpiot, there's a lot of different elite units in the IDF, but Talpiot is the unit of the physicists. It was a bet the IDF made to really train physicists and combine that with the defense industry. So we work closely with the different groups. Another of my partners is from 8200, which many of you might be familiar with, is kind of the cyber unit within the IDF. We have tentacles into those alumni groups and networks, as well as a lot of the institutions of higher learning, so Weizmann Institute, Technion, et cetera. We're kind of, I'm actually the only non-Israeli on the team of 5 partners. So we're deep in that ecosystem.
5 partners, that's cool. Out the gates, it's sort of the counter position pretty squarely against a solo
GP.
model,
Yeah, there were a lot of
GP
people that
model.
were doing that. Yeah, how'd you all meet, and what was the concept between the maybe larger partnership at this phase? I don't know.
Yeah, so we have what we call an expert first model. My main code GP is Lior Prosor, who has been a venture capitalist for 15 years. Decided to start a new platform because of the opportunities we thought were emanating specifically in deep tech and out of the Israel ecosystem. But to do deep tech right, you actually have to have significant capabilities to go deep on the technical side, to have people who are domain experts. And so 3 of our other partners are actually domain experts in the categories that we're most bullish on. One being quantum computing, the second being AI infrastructure, a third being energy, and then we also have a venture partner and advisor in the robotics side.
How are you thinking about point solutions versus defense platform companies? Are you looking for a multi-product defense firm that can build sensor towers and drones and submarines, or do you want to invest in a bunch of different teams that are doing smaller product bets, see what works, and then maybe scale out of that? Like, what's the current meta on the ground in Israel?
Yes. So interestingly, although defense is an important part of the ecosystem and shoots off a lot of the innovation that we are investing into, we don't think of ourselves as a defense fund. In fact, we're not focused on kind of kinetic battlefield focused companies, although a byproduct of the types of companies and technologies that we're investing in oftentimes do have defense ramifications and capabilities on the battlefield. We just think that the commercial opportunities of those technologies, when they extend beyond defense kind of specific companies, are much bigger. They can have much bigger outcomes. So there's a lot of dual use in the types of things that we're looking at, and what we're looking for is just insanely capable founding teams really groundbreaking kind of technology and IP and enormous end markets. And when you look at the kind of the confluence of things that Israel has in terms of the defense industry, the institutions of higher learning, the concentration of elite scientists, RF industry, silicon industry, optics industry, et cetera, there's really, the only other geography in the world that has that sort of concentration of those types of mixes of assets is really California, and you see what California produces. So we think Israel is kind of this looming deep tech giant. In a lot of ways, the ecosystem there in deep tech is kind of where cybersecurity was maybe a decade ago in Israel. And now it's this powerhouse that's producing these, just insane outcomes. We think of the next decade, the deep tech outcomes from Israel are going to be right up there.
Where did the name come from?
Oh, yeah.
So I think deep speaks for itself. One, we go deep and we're focused on deep tech. And 33 is actually, it has a mystical connotation in Judaism. It's the day of Lag BaOmer, which is a Jewish holiday where the kind of the depth of the hidden secrets of the universe were revealed for the first time. And that's what we really think our founders are doing. Our founders, our companies, and kind of the mission of the firm is to go into the technological and scientific frontiers. And we think of that as a way of revealing hidden truths. The type of work that these companies are doing, what we're trying to build, is really frontier tech and new innovation that moves the world forward and moves our understanding of the world forward.
That's cool. Last question for me. Energy. Do you put that in the deep tech realm? Are there particular areas within energy that you're interested in? Solar, nuclear, wind, anything?
Yeah, it's a great question. Absolutely. We actually have 2 energy companies already under our belt.
Wow.
We, in particular, kind of our thesis on energy is where the point of production and the point of consumption are brought together.
Sure.
So where can you create unique types of energy outputs on location, on site? So for instance, if one company we haven't announced is able to produce carbon-based fuels out of a laboratory, and there's a scale-up model around that we think is extremely compelling. The name of the game for a lot of U.S. security interests, Israel security interests, and the shared interest between the two of them is this kind of supply chain resilience. I think we saw the president speaking at Davos and even describing maybe the kind of the counter swing of globalization is here, and that means people having these capabilities on site, being less reliant on any specific partner and trade for their national security, and so that ability to bring things on site becomes incredibly important.
It's amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come chat with us. Congratulations.
Next time you join, you can join from Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
I'm assuming are you calling in from LA right now?
I'm actually calling in from New York. We're here. It's Deep 33. We're across LA, Tel Aviv, and New York. So the team all came together.
Cool.
Announce the fund and do some critical work together. So
amazing. Well, I'm sure you'll be back soon.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thanks
for
having me.
Soon.
Fun together.
Have a good one.
Cheers. Thanks.
Goodbye. CrowdStrike, your business is AI, their business is securing it. CrowdStrike secures AI and stops breaches.
That's right.
Up next, we have Aaron Katz. He's the co-founder and CEO of ClickHouse. He'll be joining in just a minute. In the meantime, let's head over to the timeline. Elon Musk has confirmed that he's unhappy with the Twitter algorithm. Data Hazard said, the Twitter algo has gone to hell. I want to again see obscure technical posts from outside my follows, not this cornucopia of low IQ rage slop. That's an interesting coinage. Elon chimed in and said, I agree, sigh. So that's the thing. Anytime that there's a bad day on the timeline, bad week on the timeline, I feel like they're pretty aggressive about just mixing it up. I don't know. You might not like the new thing, but it's going to be different.
Command
You're going
C.
to see some doing stuff. And there's been some fantastic deep fakes of Elon Musk as the farmer from Babe, Pig in the City, looking at the slop and being sad. So fun day on the timeline. Good that there will be some changes coming. Anyway, without further ado, we have Aaron Katz from ClickHouse. Welcome to the stream. Thank you so much for hopping on the show. Good to meet you. How's your year going so far?
Well, the calendar year is behind us, but our fiscal year is about to finish the end of this month, and it's going really well. We got, whatever, 8 or 9 days left, and, we're off to a good start to finish the year and the fiscal quarter and get the new year up and running beginning of February.
What's the theme of 2026 for the company? Is it just more AI? It feels like AI is so obvious, but also what else are you going to focus on?
Well, ClickHouse has been a back-end database to a lot of agentic workflows over the past couple of years, even before the ChatGPT moment. We're being used by Lovable, Cursor, Anthropic, OpenAI. Pretty much every leading AI company right now is using ClickHouse in some sort of capacity. But it's just not AI companies. I mean, we're the back end to technologies like Ramp, for example. They're your sponsor if you talk to Eric. We power most of the analytical experiences if you're a Ramp customer. And so it's just kind of doubling down on what's gotten us here. It's a very large surface area that we're going after and just kind of broadening the competitive landscape.
Have there been any challenges on actually scaling the business from an infrastructure size? You're at a scale where many AI companies are struggling with data centers, GPU poor. How has the actual build versus buy decision changed over the last few years? How has the infrastructure side of the business changed?
Yeah, well, scalability is one of ClickHouse's strengths and always has been. I mean, you just talked about Elon's. Many of Elon's companies are using ClickHouse. Tesla's a great example of that, where they're ingesting 1 billion events per second into ClickHouse. And there just isn't another database in the world.
I think you just need to start listing off who's not using ClickHouse so that
just tell us who's not a customer, and then it'll be quicker that way.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you just kind of get your head around the volume of data that these LLMs are generating and the ability to ingest that in an efficient way to be able to store and analyze that. ClickHouse really shines. So scalability is something that we really promote and our customers talk about as one of the unique characteristics of ClickHouse.
Yeah. How are you thinking about just walking through the ladder of different analytic suites and analytic functions and just case studies that can actually that are best practice today? I mean, people are familiar with like big data, MapReduce, count a bunch of things across a bunch of databases. We're in a much more modern era. What are you seeing companies do that's unique, surprising, interesting, or uniquely enabled by ClickHouse?
Yeah, you mentioned MapReduce or any sort of kind of batch-oriented processing. It's all moving towards real time. And Ramp is a great example of that. If you're a user or a customer of Ramp and you want to run analytics on spend patterns inside of your company, you're not going to wait 2 to 5 seconds for that dashboard to render or that graph to update or the report to produce results. You expect to see those in milliseconds. And so there's just this broad shift from an analytical perspective to real-time experiences. Batch processing, even waiting 3 to 5 seconds for any sort of dashboard to refresh is just an eternity. And so that's a big pull to why people are moving towards ClickHouse.
Sorry, Jordan.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the engineering culture. Last week we were at a dinner and somebody was telling me about I'll kind of mix up some of the details, but they were telling me about like an investor was going through the diligence process with ClickHouse, and you guys had shared like that they couldn't believe how few engineers had created some of the early technology, and they just honestly didn't believe it. So I wanted to ask about kind of the early engineering culture and how that's evolved and what you guys are doing on the talent side that has allowed you to work with so many of these massive important companies.
I mean, I love that question. And I don't get it often enough. The engineering team at ClickHouse, the broader community behind ClickHouse, but the creators and the committers that are part of our company are the best engineers that I've ever worked with. And I've been in the industry for quite some time. I know you've had Mark Benioff on your show several times. I spent 12 years at Salesforce. It had an incredible engineering culture. The team that we've assembled here is specifically in infrastructure software is the best in the world. And you're right, it was a very small team of primarily Russian engineers inside of a company called Yandex, which was commonly referred to as the Google of Russia, that actually created ClickHouse originally. My co-founder, Alexei Milovidov, who lives in Amsterdam, is the one that actually named it. It's short for Clickstream Data Warehouse. And so he was thinking about the data warehouse use case when he created the database itself and then made the brave decision to open source it in 2016. And that's essentially you just expose your source code to the world, and then anybody can adopt and deploy the technology with no attribution to the creators of the software, without any sort of commercial relationship. And it was a small team. It was a dozen engineers who were the primary committers that created this incredibly powerful, feature-rich database. And it's a total joy to work with this group. They're all in Holland, in the Netherlands now, all part of our company, and continue to advance the project. And then we've built a managed service that runs in the cloud called ClickHouse Cloud that they're also contributing to. And that's the primary business model. And this is a managed service that runs on Amazon, Google, and Microsoft infrastructure. And then in Asia, and primarily in China, we have a partnership with Alibaba.
How are you thinking about the way that developers and teams are selecting database backends, data storage products in the age of agentic coding? I feel like we talk to a lot of folks who they go to an agentic coding solution. They say, I want to build this type of application. I want to build, some custom piece of software. And the database choice is sort of made for them by the coding agent. And this feels like it's hyper relevant at the vibe coding, the DIY hack project level. But is this something on your radar where you think that in a few years, maybe it's already happening, how you show up in LLM search results and how the different AI agent coding models feel about ClickHouse will be important to your business?
Well, Anthropic spoke at our event last year in San Francisco. So did OpenAI and Tesla. And Anthropic discovered ClickHouse by asking Claude what they should be using for observability. And Claude said, you should be using ClickHouse. And I had a call with the CEO of a very large fintech company in Europe last week. And he said, every LLM we ask what we should be using for this new real-time analytics product we're building suggests ClickHouse. And so, fortunately, a lot of people are turning to these LLMs for guidance on what technologies they should be adopting. And I think, as everybody knows, IT decision making has been completely turned on its head from kind of a tops-down C-level mandate. You're going to use Oracle, you're going to use IBM, now to a developer-led evaluation. And open source creates such a fast path for a developer who's building an agentic application to deploy, experiment with technology without any sort of vendor relationship. They can actually push it into production for some of these agentic applications without any sort of vendor relationship. Open source is completely disrupting, how these LLM providers and enterprises are deploying these applications. And we made an acquisition last week that we announced on Friday alongside our financing that we're super excited about. It's a company out of Berlin called Langfuse, and they have built, an industry-leading LLM observability application so that now enterprises can observe, the types of experiences their users are developing on these LLM applications.
Very cool. How are you processing all the chaos in SaaS right now? The sell-off broadly, the industry's transition, went through, a couple decades where
a big question about the shift from seats to consumption or performance result.
Yeah, there's so many. I feel like open questions. How much of a threat are new? You probably laugh when people say like, "Oh, I made this database with a prompt," and you're like, "Okay, well, you're missing the 100 other features that an enterprise is really going to care about." But after spending more than a decade at Salesforce and then running ClickHouse, I'm curious what your point of view is.
Yeah, John mentioned this move from a seat-based model to consumption or usage-based, which infrastructure isn't that unique. I mean, it's been around for quite some time. Like, our customers simply pay for what they use, which is a combination typically of storage and compute. And these are very kind of AI-intensive applications. And what's unique about our service is that it automatically scales up and down. So you don't need to provision all of the compute that you otherwise would, because a lot of these analytical workloads are quite kind of spiky in nature, and you want the application to be able to idle during periods of inactivity, for example. And so I do think that these traditional seat-based, although I think we should separate like traditional business applications like Salesforce and Workday from kind of infrastructure software, which is much more of kind of the plumbing of the internet and the stuff that you don't see necessarily when you look at a mobile app or you look at a business app or a consumer app. It's a lot of the processing that occurs behind the scenes is primarily where we exist. I'll give you an example is, where I would historically use some sort of BI reporting to build a graph or a chart to show me how the business is performing, build me a bar chart that shows revenue growth or build me a stack bar chart that shows regional revenue distribution, things like that. And I'd go to some data analyst and they'd go and find the source data and they'd spend a week pulling this together and we'd have like multiple reviews. I now simply ask Anthropic. So we've integrated Anthropic's, Claude, I think it's 4.5, their latest model with our own MCP server, and then a ClickHouse cloud service that has all of our customers, not our customers' data, but like our customers' use of our service. And I can ask that prompt, like, build me a bar chart that shows these dimensions, and it builds it in like 5 seconds. And it cost me 20 cents, that single prompt. And that simple semantic search is generating like dozens of SQL queries. All of those SQL queries are all being stored in ClickHouse. And if you think about the characteristics of these agentic experiences, like the number one requirement is latency. They have to be low latency in terms of the interactivity between the text prompt, whether it's ChatGPT or anything else, where you put in that query, and then the database itself that's actually storing the data that's providing the response.
Yeah. It's fascinating how much of a global company ClickHouse is. The Alibaba partnership, the Russia history with Yandex. We were reading a post about selling software in Japan and how the Japan software buyer often will want to read a lot of documentation and details before jumping on a call with a sales associate. Does that match with your reality in Japan? What can you tell us about the difference of buyer across different countries that you've experienced throughout your career? Like, what's the key to global growth broadly?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, so half of our employees are outside of the United States. Yeah. We employ people in 22 different countries. Yeah. Half of our customers are outside of North America. Half of our revenue comes from outside of the U.S. So the company is extremely diverse internationally. I had the good fortune in 2005, so 21 years ago, Mark Benioff asked me to move to Singapore, and I spent 4 years helping Salesforce expand across the Asia Pacific region. And at the time, Japan, I believe, was the second largest country behind the US, ahead of the UK, Germany, France in terms of revenue contribution. I don't think I could be quoted on that because I'm not necessarily true. It's number 2 or 3, but it was like top 5. And I would argue it was probably top 2 if my memory serves me correctly. And you could add South Korea to that same description of just how unique these markets operate and how localized the selling effort is. We recently did, and I've seen both models, and one being you do a joint venture and where you partner with a local company and you share the risk and you share the economics and you share the upside, and they leverage local relationships in the market and local market knowledge, et cetera, or you try to do it yourselves and establish your own KK in Japan. And I've gone down both paths and learned a lot of lessons along the way. And so here at ClickHouse, we did a joint venture in Japan. We recently announced that with a firm called Japan Cloud. And they were previously Sunbridge, which is the firm that did Salesforce.com's joint venture. And so I've worked with these folks for 2 decades now. And so, yeah, it's a highly localized market. The buying behavior is very different in Japan and in South Korea than other parts of Southeast Asia, putting aside Greater China or Australia, New Zealand, or the Indian subcontinent. So it's a huge market, but not many companies get it right, honestly. They try to do it themselves versus leveraging local expertise. We also brought on some investors, a firm called Geodesic Capital, and that's run by an individual named John Roos. And John, I believe he's still on the board of Salesforce, but he was the previous ambassador for the United States to Japan. And just having those types of relationships are very important for a company like ours that we frankly don't have the same level of awareness in Japan that we do here in Silicon Valley or in New York.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Fascinating. Jordy, anything else?
Yeah, very cool. Thank
let
you
you get back to your day.
joining.
Thank you so much for hopping on the show.
At this rate, I'm sure there'll be many reasons to have
We
you
have
back
to ring
on
the
this
gong.
year.
There's a recent fundraise. Can you tell us the details?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, we weren't running a process or raising capital. There's a lot of investor interest, and so we ended up pulling a round together kind of over the holidays that was led by Dragoneer here in San Francisco. And we ended up raising $400 million. We had participation from a number of our existing investors and a few new investors. So
pulled together over the holiday. We've talked to a lot of VCs who said that it was easier to do deals over the holidays. There were less distractions at the office, and so plenty of time to hop on the phone with like a tight partnership, get something through. So congratulations.
Love it.
All right, well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Aaron.
Have a good one. Goodbye.
Cheers.
Turbo Puffer, serverless vector and full text search built from first principles on object storage. It's fast, 10x cheaper, and extremely scalable.
We are puffing.
We are puffing.
Back to the timeline. Did we miss anything else today?
Yes, we missed the fact that Keith Raboy has hit 5,000 berries classes.
Whoa.
Some people would say that's too many. It's an incredible amount. Only possible, I think, mathematically because he does multiple per day. But what an absolute generational run, sometimes a literal run on the berries treadmill from Keith Raboy. Demis Hassabis from Google told Alex Heath at Sources that he has no plans to put ads in Gemini. It's interesting they've gone for that so early. He said of OpenAI putting ads in ChatGPT, maybe they feel they need to make more revenue. What's interesting is I feel like, yes, it's like at what level do the ads bake in? Because you can access some level of Gemini model through the AI search overviews, the enhanced results that come from Google searches, and they've already monetized those, and it doesn't ruffle any feathers. So of course, on this show, we're very pro ads, and my response to Demis should be, let's do it, buddy. Let's put some ads in this. I'm ready for ads in Gemini 3 Pro. But of course, they're in a very different position. The business is much larger, much more established, and so they have much more flexibility with timing these things. I do wonder, the whole ads in ChatGPT news cycle, it was released on a Friday. It was very much crowded out by the Elon OpenAI lawsuit. It had been rumored and discussed multiple times. Sam Altman had mentioned it in many different podcast appearances. He talked to Ben Thompson about what he liked about Instagram's ads. He had been messaging. Fiji Simo came on, defined a couple things, had talked to us on our show about it. And so it was a very slow process of building up this idea that ads will be coming to ChatGPT. And the benefit of that is that it's not just all of a sudden, hey, the thing that I like now is stuffed full with ads. It's been a very slow rollout. I think it's been deliberate. I think it's smart. I think it works well. We've been discussing whether or not the first chat app to add digital advertising might get branded with the scarlet letter of that's the one that has ads, and you always remember that one as the one that has ads, even if they all add them eventually.
Yeah.
I don't know that will happen, but I have yet to see any real backlash across the internet around, ads are coming to ChatGPT, it's bad. So in general, I feel like the rollout has been handled well. I'm sure we'll see more interesting things when the ads actually go live. People will be taking screenshots of them, sharing them. As long as they partner with good companies like the Ridge Wallet, I think people would be thrilled to see Ridge Wallet ads in ChatGPT. So.
Imagine getting one of those really sketchy supplement ads. That they run these on display.
Oh yeah.
Getting one of those.
Yeah, it's like some X-ray, and it's like this one thing is destroying your metabolism.
Doctors hate
this. Yeah. The Bank of America CEO says he hired 2,000 recent graduates from 200,000 applications. I wonder how much of that's driven by AI applications. Some people are wondering how many of those applications were duplicates. You apply to multiple jobs, you can only be hired once. But Bank of America clearly growing. Humans and the new Neo Lab, founded by ex-Anthropic, XAI, and Google staff. They're trying to build interactive AI. They raised a
This is a Neo Lab.
It's a post-Neo Lab. They raised a $480 million seed round from NVIDIA, Jeff Bezos, and others at a $4.48 billion valuation. And it's in the New York Times. You can go check it out. Kate Metz has the story. So that's exciting. We have to do a proper deep dive on the Neo Lab landscape. What do you have for us, Tyler?
I mean, okay, so you said it was post-Neo Lab. I think it's actually closer to like trad Neo Lab.
Okay.
It's kind of like look, we're going to release models. They're going to be for consumers.
Okay.
We're going to do it with this human-centric view, but it's not like they're going, that we're combining this with bio wet lab or something. This is like kind of down the
like
down the
Fei Li's
fairway.
World Labs is many ways more of a post Neo Lab than this.
So if I'm
it's
getting
so much
this
less
right,
focused on
Tyler,
chat.
this is less about, okay, I'm going to send off this agent to go work for a week and I'll check in with it when it's done, and more of this kind of like co-working approach.
I believe. I mean, they haven't released much, but it seems like
you're the
whole
expert
point is
here.
very interactive. I mean, I'm the expert on what they've put out, which is very little.
So the name of the company is Humans, plural, and then an ampersand. Humans and Dylan Patel says, we are all calling this startup Human Sand. Sorry, I make the rules. It's a fire name.
Near says, what are you guys actually doing? Or what are you guys actually making? I literally cannot tell at all.
Well, they haven't been on TBPN yet. They haven't broken it down for us like we're a bunch of venture capitalists.
In other news, our very own Dylan Abruscato got a major scooping like a Ben & Jerry's employee. He figured out Instagram replaced the following tab or the following sort of keyword with friends, which are followers you follow back.
Yes, and this has implications. Explain.
Yeah, so the implications here are that some people aren't following accounts because they want to keep they have some idea of what their follower to following ratio should be.
Yeah, if I follow 800 people and have 100,000 followers, it looks really elite. But if I have 100,000 followers and 100,000 following following, it just looks like I'm like doing some scheme. I have some bot going or something. I mean, hilariously, Barack Obama had a follow back bot on Twitter, I think throughout his entire presidency. So this comes up all the time because someone will find some crazy account and they'll be like, Barack Obama follows this? What's going on? And it's like because he follows like 3 million people or something.
Yeah. Anyways,
but
this is a continuation of the kind of product decision where they allow people to not show the number of likes a post has, right? They want people to post more. So if they're not showing the number of people
that's
that follow,
why sometimes I just see a heart that's blank because they don't want to show me how many people like it.
Yeah, it's the user gets to decide. I don't
realize that.
I don't want to be measured by how many people tapped, right?
Okay,
So the idea was to encourage people to post more because they're not feeling this pressure to put up crazy numbers.
Oh, I always get 100. If I get 80, I won't feel good that day, so I will just turn that feature off entirely.
Yes, correct. So I think they want people to follow more people. And we'll see. I don't think this is rolled out to everyone yet.
Yes, and the net effect that you believe will happen is that there will be more following activity on Instagram. So lots of accounts will be followed. Yes.
Yeah. So I will say when I go on Instagram, instead of seeing on this
so this is a very limited test. And
yes, but so I see friends.
You do,
but I don't see the post number. I see the friends, the followers, and following.
Okay.
Where in this screenshot, I think it was I don't see it anymore.
Yeah.
But it was posts.
Oh, so maybe you're in another test.
I'm in a different test. Yeah.
Adam Mosseri is treating us all like guinea pigs over here, lab rats in his maze. It's great. Anyway, is there anything else you want to talk about?
We got to end on this. This is extremely important.
Yes.
This kid was sent to the principal's office for lying that his uncle was Superman. The next day, his uncle, Henry Cavill, dropped him off at school. And Andrew Feldman said, dip SHIT school.
Andrew Feldman, the
of
CEO
course,
of Cerebras, a $22 billion company, does not like that the school sent the kid to the principal's office. But justice was done. Henry Cavill showed up and stole the day. And it's the wholesome side of X. If your algorithm's all sloppy, maybe you need to adopt Andrew Feldman's algorithm because he's got some great posts and he's not afraid to reply to them.
And last but certainly not least, John Palmer says the TBPN guys are just two Fortnite archetypes. John is maxed out stats, 6'8", 230 pounds, 0 V-Bucks, still on default skin after a year, no emotes, pure fundamentals. Jordy's mid-cracked, only 6'1", and absolutely loaded with V-Bucks. Rotates legendary skins, spams rare emotes on the soundboard every 5 minutes. That I do.
This is extremely accurate.
I
feel seen. I feel seen.
John knows us well.
He knows us well. I'm going to hit the repost on that one. That's a good one.
Anyways, folks, thank you for tuning in today.
Fun day.
It's only Tuesday. We got 3 more shows for you.
Got lots more
in-person
guests this weekend or this week. Leave us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to the TBPN newsletter at tbpn.com. We will be live tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific.
Wonderful afternoon, evening, wherever you are.
Yes.
We love you.
Goodbye.
Nice work, brothers. I'll see you on the next one.